about a topic that I've been excited to come to you with as a mayoral candidate for the city of Fort Smith. So if you're interested in what I have to talk about, and I think you will be, make sure to stick around in this video if you're seeing it on the recording later. It's very exciting. I've been working on this for 3 months. People have been wondering if I'm still running for mayor because I haven't been talking about it a whole lot and everything else. And yes, we've been in legal for 3 months working on getting everything refined. And I got everything refined now. I also had to become a notary, so I started becoming a notary yesterday. And I'm now a notary with the state of Arkansas. Once I register with my county clerk, I will be able to begin my project, which I'm announcing officially today. I've talked about it a couple times, but this will be the first day that I announce anything like this. So, I'm drinking some Pellegrino, sparkling mineral water. Welcome in. Hello, Scotland. I bet your city halls in Scotland are a lot more fun than the city hall meetings we have here in the United States.
Sorry, it's always slipped my mind. No problem.
Robert Burns would probably appreciate a good Scottish city council meeting. How you doing, Andre?
Well, Shane, how are you doing?
Good, good. It's good to see me.
I was going to shoot you.
We're matching colors right now. Look at that, matching colors. I have not had a chance to review the deal. I'm trying to finish another deal that closes tomorrow. Once that's done, that's my next thing, is to start looking for my next deal, and that's when I was going to analyze what we've got going on. So this is our citizens forum, so everybody's allowed to come and speak about whatever's on their mind. I've signed up to speak today. I'll have 5 minutes. I don't think I need 5 minutes to talk about what we're going to talk about. I don't need to go get mingling and making connections. I was doing that for just a little bit. Right now, I want to talk to you guys and be able to inform you about what we have going on. So I'm happy to be chit-chatting with you. I spent a lot of time mingling after the last city council meeting, and well, I figure if I'm going into politics, I need to be a bloodsucker, right? A fit check. Take a look. Yes, I'm running for the mayor of this city. Yes, I'm buying a couple houses tomorrow. I've been working on it for about 2 months, but I'm hoping to close tomorrow. We'll see. You never know. Yes, I will be live while I'm speaking. I do everything as much as I can, as openly as possible. One of the most important things about my mayoral campaign, thank you so much. Thank you, Ashley. One of the most important things about my mayoral campaign is transparency. I've always been transparent about everything I can be transparent about, which means I'm going to be live as much as I can. I'm going to do everything on video as much as I can. I talk to you guys about things nobody will talk about, the financing problems, the having to deal with, party situations at my B&Bs, or when you just don't feel like doing something and you still have to. I talk about all that stuff. So you know that I've been transparent forever. I will definitely be politically transparent. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not here to try to fit in. I'm here to be the best person that I can be and do good things. Yes, I am transparent in mirrors if they're Victorian. This is a Pellegrino. It's a sparkling mineral water. I don't drink beer. It's too many carbs and not really good for you. But yeah, we're in the city council meeting, so things are going to get going here in just a minute, so we can see all the people around me here. Hi, thank you so much. Welcome in. Radio House from Newfoundland, Canada. Newfoundland, right? That's how you say it. I want to say it correct. The population of Fort Smith is closer to 100K than 80K. We're at like 93, 94,000. How you doing, Joey?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Pretty good. I got the petition finally back last week.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be speaking about it today now that we have that. I went ahead and registered as a notary yesterday, so I got to finish the paperwork on that tomorrow so I can notarize the signatures myself.
Yeah.
I think that'll make it a lot simpler.
Yeah, it did. And you're welcome to. We've got a notary in the office.
Well, they need to be notarized the same day they're signed, and that's where I feel like that would be a Saturday, Sunday, whatever day is happening.
So did you talk to Matt?
Yes, I did. He was incredibly helpful.
Good.
Thank you for
I
the
knew you
referral.
would be. Good. I'm glad. I'm sorry it took me so long.
No, it's
Some things
okay.
I want to help on, and I get to where I'm just a little
you got this-
uncomfortable on this.
You got the city to turn back on that stupid contract they did. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a win. Like, that's a real win for the citizens.
Yeah, I think so. I think we were headed down. Did you see those numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You know,
not.
just a But when you start cutting corners like that,
Right.
well, good. I'm glad to hear.
Curious if I'm taken seriously. I don't know. Am I? Let's flip the camera around. We're about to get started. We're going to flip the camera so you can see what's happening. You can't notarize your own signature. That's not a thing you can do. Get everything framed in where I'm looking at the same thing with both cameras at the same time.
Good evening and welcome to the 14th City Board of Directors study session on this March 10th of 2025. The meeting will be called order. We'll go directly to the first item on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item tonight is an update regarding an engineering roadway project to reconfigure the intersection and street alignment at South 6th Street and Wheeler Avenue in the vicinity of the Bakery District. The project will also address about 300 feet of teenage water line along South 6th Street. This project has been on the Streets and Drainage CIP since 2024, and the design has been contracted to Crafton Tull, who is here this evening. Mr. Todd McGee, Director of Engineering, will make his opening remarks as we proceed with this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Dinion. As you stated, we have Crafton Toll here to give a presentation and entertain any questions the board may have for them, myself included.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much and good evening. Thank you for dedicating your time to this vital safety project. 6th Street is a crucial corridor bordering the Bakery District, serving as the primary gateway to the National Cemetery. This evening, we'll provide a status update on a project that is already board approved and fully integrated into the 2024 Capital Improvement Program. The mill has become a premier community hub, drawing significant foot traffic that our current infrastructure wasn't designed to handle. The approach to the National Cemetery should be a dignified, welcoming, and above all, safe experience for all visitors. The reality is that current conditions present ongoing risks for both pedestrians and motorists.
Thank you,
The project is our proactive step towards resolving those
Thank you, Donna.
immediate safety gaps while honoring our long-term vision for the district. Our goal is to harmonize competing needs within the high-demand corridor. Parking. We are boosting capacity through intelligent layout optimization rather than relying on angled parking. Safety. By narrowing travel lanes and widening sidewalks, we naturally encourage low speeds and other better pedestrian protection. Accessibility. Ensuring full ADA compliance isn't just a legal checkbox. It's a reflection of our community's commitment to inclusivity. Future proofing. The design remains flexible, allowing for future enhancements such as potential for transitioning to angled parking if needed. We have identified 3 crucial failure points: failure in infrastructure, hazardous sightlines, and inadequate pedestrian protections. The current conditions go well beyond cosmetic decay. They are dealing with crumbling pavement, compromised sight distance at key intersections, and systemic accessibility failures. And as you see in the pictures, we have the pavement that is just completely deteriorated. And since this has been on the 2024 CIP, it's gotten worse. The intersection at Parker is completely blind to the left side. People have to pull out into the intersection to be able to turn. And the pedestrian crossings are very long and unprotected. This plan is the result of multiple rigorous review cycles, careful balancing parking, safety, and business access. We are implementing a road diet strategy, narrowing lanes and tightening corner radii to naturally manage traffic speeds. Key upgrades include expanding sidewalks to a comfortable 7 foot and ensuring full ADA compliance. We're also simplifying the traffic signal at Wheeler to make crossings safer and adding greenery to beautify the historic entrance. The 7 foot sidewalk provides a modern, spacious pedestrian experience that sets a new standard for the area. Traffic calming is being achieved through intuitive geometry, avoiding the need for disruptive speed bumps and additional signals. Importantly, business access remains completely uninterrupted. Not a single driveway will be eliminated. And we have managed to increase parking through smarter design while leaving the door open for future angled parking configurations. This project has already been approved through a 2024 CIP, and we are currently estimating the cost of approximately $1.53 million, although the final figure is still being worked on as we progress. This investment is about more than just paving. It's a direct commitment to our community safety and long-term economic vitality. Can I answer any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Director Rigo, you're recognized.
How long, thank you for the presentation, thank you for the work that you all put in on this. If we were to say start right away, and that's not what I'm saying, but how long do you envision this sort of change taking place, the work?
Construction we've estimated to be about 7 months. About 290 working days.
Okay. Thank you. I know, I'll say for myself, as someone who's at the intersection and uses this frequently, I mean, it's definitely a intersection that we need to seriously consider how it can be upgraded, how it can be future-proofed, how it can be modernized, not only for the heavy traffic that goes in and around the Bakery District, but I mean, that's the front entrance, if you will, right into the National Cemetery. And so I know that it's been on our mind ever since the resolution we passed back in 2024, but just want to make sure we don't lose momentum on making sure that this is addressed moving forward.
Thank you, Director Rigo. Any other comments? Director Neal?
I have one comment. I don't know if this is for you guys, but is the water line replacement specifically due to this project, or is that already on our plan?
I think it is being combined with this project because of this. I mean, it needs to be done,
Okay.
and it's necessary to be done, but it's a convenient time.
Okay. Well, I needed to know. Thank you.
And Director Christian DeSantis.
Well, I will say, I don't know if you remember, we all got pictures of some water leaks that were over there. You remember that? It was a year or so ago, and there was a lot of water that was leaking in that area.
Oh, but yeah, there's a
Director Kim.
Thank you, Mayor. To the point of Director Martin, I do wonder, since this project, which I think is a great project, it needs to be done, as I frequent this intersection as well, should we, and this is just a question for staff, I guess, really, should we look at replacing more than 300 feet to avoid digging up freshly paved roads down the road? So often, I think the thing that I cringe on is a road gets repaved and then yet here we are sawing a section out of the freshly paved road? Or are there other utilities that need to be addressed as well along the way so that we do this right and look at what's underneath? And then a follow-up of that would be, I remember, I think it was Mr. Jimmy that was talking about downtown having high pressure, and we talked about dialing pressure down. And if we were to do that, is any of that swell itself into this project scope? That's a question I have. Thank you.
That's a great question. In this case, there's a approximately 120-year-old sand cast water line in here that is the same type of line that comes down to Garrison and Rogers as well. So when or if, as you recall, there was an issue with those several years ago where there were some steel plates in the road for a very long period of time. That's because there was problems with the sand cast line, and once it's touched and disturbed, it is very tough to control, and it just keeps on breaking. It's almost like an asbestos concrete line. So with this project, we were afraid that when they start ripping things up, that the sand cast line will be disturbed and we'll have problems. So that's why the bare minimum is 300 feet of the sand cast water line. But I believe there is sewer there as well, but it's already been taken care of in the project. But we'll look into that further. And as far as extending the project, if the board wants to do that and modify the CIP, we could go farther to the northeast and keep on going. But at this time, we would end with what you see as a green bulb out at Parker Avenue. That's kind of a traffic calming measure to allow folks to safely pull out from Parker to see if it's safe to come out, because we thought about putting a stop sign there, but MUTCD, the manual and uniform traffic control devices, does not support, in my opinion, a stop sign in that location. So this is a great way to do that and allow greater safety there.
Yes,
But
I'll be
it could
talking in a few minutes.
extended, and my long-term plan would be to improve a bulb out past Parker, past by the courthouse, and keep beautifying this strip of roadway and really highlighting this section of the city. It's all, anything can be done with enough money.
Thank you for your key insights.
Thank you. Director Nealmar.
I do have one other question. A number of people have reached out to me about the confusion as they're coming on Wheeler and making the decision to turn right on 6 to keep going straight. I think the light plays a role in that confusion. And I know you kind of talked about it, how's that being addressed with this particular project?
With this project, we're actually going to change that intersection altogether. There is a dedicated lane to the right that is just for the right turn.
Okay. Is it a right turn today? Is it
It
right turn
is,
only?
it is, but where the masts are and the lights are, it is confusing.
It is the way the light throws people off. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so but we are changing, coming from 6th onto Wheeler, we're changing the lane dynamics there as well. So, right now, you have, coming from Wheeler, well, we've had it temporarily changed recently. So we've been trying out some ideas to see what would be most productive. But it used to be that you had a free left kind of onto Wheeler. And now it's a stop intersection regardless of which direction you're going.
Okay. Yeah, that's been, people brought that up to me, said this is one of the more confusing intersections in the city. And so anything that we can do to kind of clean that up. I mean, you got folks that are going downtown, you got folks that are going to Oklahoma. That just, there's a lot of confusion.
And I also will mention that lighting is pretty expensive. That's our biggest costs are probably associated with the traffic light and with the panels. We're replacing the panels in that intersection on the trolley line to clean those up and make those more safe too. So those are two pretty big expenses, and that's a lot of where that cost comes from.
Director Settle.
Thank you, Michelle, for everything you did here. When you present this Because before we had angled parking back in, now we're going to parallel parking. Well, why was the change made?
It was discussed, and Fort Smith doesn't have any back-end parking. And this is not the right place to put the first example of it. I think that the city felt that it would be more advantageous to put the first back-end parking in a very open area that was well sited. So right here, with the people coming around the corner and the building being there, we could do it, and we have the site distance, but it's just not the best place for the first time in Fort Smith.
Okay, thank you very much.
Director Rigo.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, are there next steps? You know, can you talk us through kind of the next steps? Is there any action that you would like us to take to have this, progress made on this? Where does this stand and what's next?
Well, they will finish the design work, and then they will facilitate the construction bidding process, and so that'll be the next thing that you see.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions?
Mayor, I did want to say we are having some video difficulties with the meeting tonight, so just FYI.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Should be good now.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will go to item number 2.
Some time ago, the board requested a discussion regarding employment and job growth in the city of Fort Smith and the River Valley. Here with us to lead such a discussion this evening is Kendall Ross, Associate Vice Chancellor for Economic and Workforce Development at the University of Arkansas Fort Smith's Center for Economic Development. Also here this evening are Sasha Grist and Ashley Garris from the city's workforce development partner, the Western Arkansas Planning and Development District. Mr. Ross has a presentation for us this evening to start the discussion, so Kendall.
Mr. Deeman, thank you so much for the opportunity to do this. Josh, can you pull up my presentation, and then we will get started.
This is a city council meeting. I will be speaking later.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. And I want to do exactly what you asked. I want to give you an update on the employment and job growth in Fort Smith. I'm going to walk you through the current labor market. I'm going to look at some trends in some various sectors. And then I'm going to close with what the Western Arkansas Planning and Development District is doing, as well as the University of Arkansas Fort Smith is doing to support workforce development in this area. So the session here is really important for 3 reasons. First, it's to give this update on employment and job growth that you requested. But secondly, I want to look at labor market conditions, and I want to look at some very key sector trends that we see in the Fort Smith Metro. I really want to focus on what's changing, but also what's stable as well. And then finally, I want to tie this data to action and what Western Arkansas Planning and Development District and UAFS is doing to support the workforce development effort. Here's the headlines. Unemployment is 4.4%. Total non-farm jobs, 105,200. So unemployment at 4.4%, anything between 2.5 and 4.5 we consider pretty good. That is normal unemployment. We're going to have people that are in and out of the workforce on a regular basis, and so that's normal for us. We are near the same as the United States, and we're slightly above Arkansas, and we'll look at this specific data as we go through this. The total non-farm jobs are 105,200. That is a record number of jobs for the Fort Smith Metro since right before the Great Recession in 2008. So we have been on a steady climb. I characterize that as slightly rising. And you'll see our total non-farm growth was 0.7% year over year. I think the thing that we need to see here is what's driving it. The gains are primarily in leisure and hospitality, and as well as trade, transportation, and utilities, and government is down. And we'll look very specifically at these data. So in plain English, what does that say? Well, before I get into the charts, which I'm going to show you a lot of data, but before we do that, I just want to kind of give you an overview of what I think this tells us. Fort Smith is stable, and I think that's what we need to hear, but it's growing more slowly than our peers. The drivers, recent gains in service and transport sectors, not manufacturing. Construction is volatile, suggesting some softening over the course of the last year. Our population growth is weak, and because of that, that restricts our hiring capacity pretty significantly. And so the implications for that are basically that capacity matters. Population and labor force trends shape how fast we can grow, and they influence our hiring pressure and our competitiveness. And so as a metro, we need to upskill, and we need to attract, and we need to build our growth sectors. So let's talk about the data for just 1 second. All of the charts you're going to see are based on the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. We use that because it's best for illustrative purposes. The underlying sources are the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And then we use the Compass Report archives, which we produce quarterly to review Fort Smith, Northwest Arkansas, Central Arkansas, and Jonesboro trends in a very consistent way. I do think it's important that we start with some definitions. You're aware of the civilian population, but the civilian labor force are people that are either employed or unemployed, but actively looking. And so they have to be actively looking in the last 4 weeks. Employed persons are people who did any type of paid work for the reference week, and that would include people who are self-employed. And then unemployed are people who do not have a job, but at the same time were available to work and actively looking for work in the last month. I do want to make a distinction between people and jobs. The local area unemployment statistics provide us the number of people, so labor force and employed and unemployed. And then the current employment statistics provide us the jobs. And so sometimes those don't match perfectly, and you'll see that as we move through the data. Unemployment rate is the share of the labor force that's unemployed. Unemployment rate is basically unemployed divided by the total labor force. Labor force participation rate is the amount of people that are participating in our force. Total non-farm jobs, the number of jobs that are located in the metro that are reported by employers. This excludes farm work and generally excludes self-employed. And then finally, the sector job change year over year. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the change broken out by industry. We'll look at manufacturing and healthcare, etc. If it's positive, that means we've added jobs. If it's negative, that means the jobs have declined. So let's start with the base unemployment rate for the Fort Smith Metro. I'll just remind you that the Fort Smith Metro is Sebastian, Crawford counties in Arkansas, Sequoia County in Oklahoma. You can see it's pretty stable here. You'll see the pandemic spike in 2020. The key point here, I think, is stability. There's not a sign of any kind of labor market slowdown. There's not a turn down, but there's also not a lot of slack here. This is the baseline health check, if you will, before we compare Arkansas and the U.S. So this is where we are, somewhere between about 4.5%. The unemployment rate in Fort Smith versus Arkansas and U.S. So the red is the United States, the green is Arkansas, and the blue is the Fort Smith Metro. You'll notice for most cases we stay below the rate of Arkansas. There are times that we peak above that, but for the most part we stay there. Most generally we stay below that of the United States. I think this is helpful because it helps us understand that local outcomes are tied to regional and national conditions, but the local sector mix really matters a lot, and we'll talk about the sector mix. This is the civilian labor force versus employed persons. So what we're looking at here in the blue, this is the amount of people that are available to work in the Fort Smith Metro. The green that you see is the amount of people that are actually employed. You'll see a difference probably about 4,000 or so. That's about a normal unemployment rate for us. There are just going to be people that are leaving jobs and transitioning jobs and things of that nature. So that's about right for us. Let's talk about resident population. I went back to 2007, and what I did is I indexed 2007 as 100%. So this is prior to the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. So everyone's population, whatever it might have been, in 2007 is 100%. And then what we did is we tracked the population growth. This is showing growth for Fort Smith, which is in the blue. Green is Arkansas, red is United States, and that yellow or orange or amber color, whatever you want to call it, is Northwest Arkansas. So you can see here that we have had a significant growth in Northwest Arkansas, in fact about plus 35% since 2007. What constrains us is our population. In Fort Smith, you're going to see a weaker long-run population trend. You'll see a couple of step changes. That's just a change in the way data is reported. But the big takeaway here is really the same, and that is population growth capacity here in Fort Smith Metro has lagged our peers, and that really affects how fast employment can expand. Let's talk about recovery of non-farm jobs. One of the things I was concerned about was how quickly did we recover? So again, I indexed this to February of 2020, right prior to the pandemic. So our non-farm jobs, I call that 100% in February of 2020. And how quickly did we recover? That's what this chart tells us. So you can see the drop during COVID. You can see the rebound. Within a couple of years, we had rebounded really well. And then you can see this slower upward slope afterward. And the message here is that recovery occurred and jobs are rising, but again, they're rising at a modest pace. Under total non-farm jobs, this is just the actual total number of non-farm jobs. This data is seasonalized here, but the data is right at 105,000 jobs in the Fort Smith Metro. This is the baseline for what we're going to look at when we talk about adding or removing jobs. This is the job count that anchors absolutely everything that we do. This is 105,000 jobs in the Fort Smith Metro. It also provides kind of scale for you for the sector slide. So when we say a sector is up or a sector is down, we're talking about a contribution to this total of non-farm jobs. So let's start with manufacturing. Manufacturing is still an anchor for Fort Smith. If you look at the far right-hand side of this slide, you'll see about 18,000 people employed in manufacturing jobs. What you do see here is stability rather than rapid growth, and that matters. Our sector mix here in the Fort Smith Metro is different than most of our peers. Manufacturing makes up a little over 17% of our total jobs, and that's pretty significant for this area. There's no other metro in Arkansas that gets anywhere close to 17% for manufacturing jobs. This is a strength, especially when we think about competitiveness and wage potential. Manufacturing jobs are significant for us. Let's talk about construction jobs for a second. Construction is very much cyclical, reacts very quickly to interest rates and development activity. You can see the volatility here in construction jobs. But I'll treat this kind of as an early signal sector. When construction softens, it can hint at kind of a slower momentum for other parts of the economy. I think you'll notice in 22 we began to rebuild. I think the majority of that is probably apartments and car washes in Fort Smith. That's what I think it is. This is private education and health services. Most of this is health services, so the private education part here is pretty small. You'll notice that health services are really at a record number of employment since actually before 2007, so this is a 20-year record. I think you'll find that health services is a stability for an economy. You'll also find that we don't have enough healthcare workers for our health services today. So this is one of those areas that we can continue to grow on. Let's talk about leisure and hospitality. Leisure and hospitality is kind of a good signal for consumer and service activities. So you'll see the post-pandemic recovery happen pretty quickly. You'll see more recent gains. In fact, I'll connect this to the year-over-year changes. This is one of the great sectors that we saw some increase in. This sector is one of the drivers of recent job growth. And so this tells us that our restaurants, our hotels, and our tourism activity is continuing to increase. And so that's a really good sign. Well, here's the scoreboard. This answers the question, where did the jobs actually change last year? This is the Fort Smith, Arkansas, Oklahoma MSA from December 24 to December of 25. You can see we lost 200 jobs in government, 100 jobs in other services, and then 100 jobs primarily in construction. Information, financial activities, and manufacturing were all flat year over year. And then the sectors that gained were professional and business services, gained 100 people. Education and health services gained 200 jobs. Trade, transportation, and utilities is up 300 jobs. And then leisure and hospitality is up 500 jobs. And so you can kind of see which sectors are driving growth and which are offsetting. This matters because broad-based growth feels a lot different than growth that's concentrated in one sector. So it's good to see that we have 4 sectors that are growing. Let's talk about average weekly earnings as reported. Again, the red is the United States, the green is Arkansas, and the blue is average weekly earnings of all employees in the Arkansas-Oklahoma MSA. I have indexed this back to February of 2020, so I'm looking at what has happened post-COVID. Again, everything was indexed back to 100%, and you will see that Fort Smith Metro is keeping up with the United States, and it's also keeping up with Arkansas as far as average weekly earnings. Now, what I do want you to see is at the far top right, and if you'll take 2026 and go up to the top, you'll see we've increased wages about 30% since COVID. So just kind of keep that number in your head for a minute, if you would. I'll get back to it in a second. This is the total non-farm jobs recovery since 2020. Again, everything's indexed to 2020. The green is Arkansas, the blue is Fort Smith Metro, and the red is total non-farm United States. What you're going to see is this is probably one of the most important comparisons for us to see. Arkansas has outpaced the United States since COVID, and Fort Smith has grown, but it's at a slower rate. And this doesn't mean Fort Smith is failing. What it means is our pace is different, and that brings us back to sector mix and capacity constraints, what we see here in the metro. So let me just put a chart up that kind of shows you a little bit about how we compare to the other 3 metros in the state. The unemployment rate in Fort Smith is 4.4%. This was as of December 2025. Northwest Arkansas unemployment rate at 3.1%, Central at 3.9%, and Jonesboro at 3.9%. Again, all of those are what we would consider reasonable unemployment rates. But if you look at total non-farm job growth, you'll see we're up 0.7% year over year. Northwest Arkansas is at 3.6%, Central Arkansas is at 1%, and Jonesboro is at 1.4%. Probably the key here, though, is our manufacturing share. 17.2% of our employment is in manufacturing. 8.9% is in Northwest Arkansas, and Central Arkansas is at 5.4%. I think the key takeaway is the growth gap, especially compared to Northwest Arkansas. I think the manufacturing share also helps us kind of explain the structural differences here. Fort Smith is very much manufacturing anchored, which influences how quickly we grow over time. Okay, let's talk about the house price index. Again, these are indexed back to February
This
of
is a big deal for our city.
2020. So pre-COVID, what is happening to house prices across the region? Well, red is United States, green is Arkansas, blue is Fort Smith Metro, and guess what? We are continuing to increase. Are we staying competitive? I don't know, perhaps, but if you look at that number on the far right, which is 2025, you can guesstimate where 2026 is. House price index are up since February of 2020, 60%. The average weekly earnings were up 30%. So you can see our struggles here. This matters because affordability affects workforce attraction and affects retention. Even if our job growth is modest, these rising costs can tighten the labor pool and will create pressure on households. So what does this outlook look like for the next 2 quarters? Well, we have some strengths. Our service sector gains continue, leisure and hospitality is strong, trade, transportation, and utilities is strong. Manufacturing remains stable. Year over year, it's flat, but that's a good sign. And the total jobs are continuing to rise, but they're rising slightly. The things we're watching, I think we need to watch construction softness. It's a little bit of a decline, and it's certainly very volatile. And there is a definite labor force constraint. That limits our hiring capacity. We simply don't have enough people. What we'll continue to monitor through the Compass reports, we'll continue to monitor non-farm year over year, whether it's broadening or narrowing, and then what's the labor force trend look like? What's the availability? I think the bottom line here is job growth is positive, but it's certainly concentrated in a few sectors, and there are some capacity constraints that we very much need to watch. What does this mean for Fort Smith? This is probably the way I would sum it up. Fort Smith's labor market is stable, but very much capacity constrained.
About 93,000
Job growth is
people.
positive. Again, we're at a record number of jobs for the Fort Smith area in the last 20 years, but it's narrow, it's very dependent on a few sectors. Manufacturing remains a pillar of the economy, and that's important as we continue to look for more efficient processes. And then the population and labor force trends require focused workforce development and talent retention strategies. So here to speak about Western Arkansas Planning and Development District and the services they offer is Ashley Harris, Assistant Director.
Thank you for having us. We at Western Arkansas Planning received the WIOA funds, which is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act Title I-B funding from the state, which ultimately comes down from the Department of Labor. The program is designed to support individuals in gaining skills necessary for employment, particularly those facing barriers to the workforce. This program provides funding for training, vocational training, apprenticeships. We are dedicated to removing the barriers that we have in order to get them back into an in-demand occupation to further their self-sustainability. So we offer training, we do job search, resume writing, mock interviews, referrals with our partners. So we have
We're talking about the economic strength of Fort Smith.
Arkansas Rehab are some of our core partners that we partner with here at the One Stop Center downtown. And so you can go there and we will send you to all the partners and they will help you. If we can't, we have to be the last resort, which is just part of our requirements. And so, we usually see if adult A can help with the funding, maybe to send you, back to training to get a certificate, whether it's welding, CDL, CNA. So we offer those services for adults and youth. So the youth is gonna be, ages 16 to 24. They provide the same services that we do to the adults, but we also offer the work experience. So we can find, an employer that, is needing someone, and we can actually pay their wages. We can pay up to 1,020 hours based on the need, and that is at minimum wage for the state minimum wage. So we're just trying to get these young people back, working so they can have the soft skills to get in the workforce. We hear from a lot of our employers that the youth don't have the soft skills whenever they graduate. So we are trying to help fill that gap as much as possible. We also have the dislocated worker program, which is adults that are maybe being laid off, company closures in our area, so they can come to us. If they want to learn a different trade, go back to school to do something maybe that's in a different field, we can help pay for those individuals to go back to school, to get a certificate. When the Tyson layoff happened in Van Buren, we were able to help a lot of those individuals go back to college to get a bachelor's degree, associate's degree, whatever they wanted to do, as long as it was something different and they didn't already have something. So there are eligibility requirements for all across the board, just like with any other federal program. But we do try to meet the people where they're at and help them in any way to try to get them back in the workforce and fill the gaps for our employers in that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. One final slide. Here's how the University of Arkansas Fort Smith Center for Economic Development supports this work. We provide economic intelligence, which includes labor market trends, sector changes, the compass benchmarks on a regular basis. That way decisions are data-driven. I think that's important. We also deliver workforce and professional training aligned to employer needs. This year, we will introduce Manufacturing Academy this summer, where we will take people who are unemployed and underemployed and provide them with 100 hours of training in a new workforce development center on campus, where we will train them to go directly into a manufacturing job. So our goal would be to take someone who's making minimum wage and move them into a manufacturing role where they can actually have a decent wage and at the same time have benefits, and so we're excited about that. We also have youth apprenticeships that we offer every summer and adult apprenticeships through the Department of Labor. We support business growth and nonprofit capacity through our centers. Our goal is to align partners and strengthen the talent line and keep providing clear reporting, ultimately so that you as a city can track progress. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Director Settle and then Director Neil Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Ross. Appreciate it. Let's go back to MSA. What counties are the MSA?
So there are 3 counties: Sebastian, Crawford, and then Sequoia, Oklahoma.
So we're taking those, so it's, you see, Portsmouth Metro, you're really talking more River Valley Metro, right?
So Fort Smith Metro is defined by the Office of Management and Budget. So yeah, I would call it River Valley Metro.
Okay, so everything we talked about was those 3 counties combined,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
So just was brought up with Ashley, when Tyson hit and Van Buren hit a layoff, that Metro hits us. Is that
That's correct, absolutely.
Okay, so it's just not Fort Smith only, it's the counties as a whole.
Absolutely.
Is there any way to pull just Fort Smith out of the data? You don't mention now, but I would ask that question, because
I
this
think
board
we-
gets measured on Fort Smith alone,
I
and now
understand.
we're trying to measure us on a 3-county basis that we have no control of the other areas. So that's the reason I was asking the question.
I think the answer is no, but I will go back and research that for sure.
Okay, and then the Northwest Arkansas Metro, is that just the 2 counties, Washington and Benton, or is it county anything else?
It's Washington and Benton.
Okay, thank you.
Director Neil Martin.
Well, so I think this kind of mirrors what we've seen. There is growth, but it's semi-flat. There is job growth, but it's flat as well. It seems like we've been on that trajectory for a while now. When you look at successful communities and you know, I think we saw one of the slides that Jonesboro had doubled us in terms of, that we were 0.7, they were 1.5, something like that. I think that's the non-farm payrolls. And I'm not saying that they're successful, I'm just saying, what are successful cities doing? Because we've got to recruit. We've got to bring people here, we've got to bring jobs here. What are successful cities, not necessarily just the government entity itself, because I'm not a big believer in government driving all of this, but what are successful cities doing in order to get that population growth, get those job growth, and how can we as a governing body help foster that?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave those questions to you guys on the city board, because that's your job. My job is to report the data and let you figure out how to get people here. You get them here, we'll train them.
Well, you know, I don't think government drives all the strings,
I understand.
or pulls all the strings, but I think that government can create a climate that is good. In 2019, 2020, we saw those construction numbers, the building permit numbers,
Right.
went through the roof. I mean, up through maybe 23, 24, they just dropped.
Yeah.
25, they're starting to come back up, but not, I mean, we're at $500 million in the metro in terms of building permits. We're now at about 280. And that was the difference between 22, 23,
Right.
and now 25. So it just dropped off a cliff, and now it's making its way back up. There's probably some things related to COVID and how COVID dollars are being allocated and all those things that led to that. But you know, I think for a board, this ought to be our driver. And you know, I know that we talk about stability and we talk about you know, we don't necessarily see the ups and the downs like other municipalities do, but I think we've really got to set our focus on population growth and job growth in order to be able to continue our growth. Now, and the one thing, and Director Katsavas, Christina Katsavas brought this up when we were talking about water, we're having to make significant decisions related to water based off population growth. And we know we've got the FMS mission that's making its way here, and we haven't seen the full impact of that yet. That'll happen over a few years. But you know, if we don't trend at 1.5% growth, which is I think what the projections are made at, then we've got a longer window in which we have to be able to build this water transmission line that's going to anywhere from $300 to $500 million. But you know, I still think we've got to push for growth in population, growth in jobs, because I think my belief, and I'm not an economist, is as more jobs come here, that becomes more jobs for all of us, which should drive up wage growth. Is that how that works?
Yes.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
see wage growth, so we see all that stuff happening together. It's just we got to figure out a way to make it work.
Agreed.
Director Sanders.
Well, I think it does look like we are seeing wage growth, as wages have increased 30% since 2020. You know, I would say to attract those larger employers here, we have to have a qualified, skilled workforce. And so that's one thing that I've been really looking into is what is available to us. And I know there's some programs through the state that are funded through the state, that they're not just the CDL and things like that, but one of the programs they offered was for someone to get their project management certification. I know that's usually, you know, a few $1,000s. That was available free of charge. And so the director of Workforce Connections for Arkansas, he's actually a Fort Smith guy. And so I talked to him from time to time, and he said, you know, Fort Smith just doesn't take advantage of these programs like Northwest Arkansas does, like Conway does. So that's something I think we need to be mindful about and really looking into going forward. I just held a roundtable for small businesses, and I was asking them how are wage expectations changing, and they said over the past few years, things have changed very rapidly. Not only are wage expectations increasing, but people are less skilled and fewer soft skills. And so I think we really need to lean into how do we get our workforce up to speed and qualified. Kendall, do you feel like our numbers on the unemployment, you know, I hear sometimes that these numbers are artificially low because people just drop out of the workforce? Do we see any of that?
Well, you'll see some of that, but if they're dropping out of the workforce, they're dropping out of the workforce in a lot of places as well. They're dropping out of the workforce in Northwest Arkansas too. And so this only accounts for those people that are looking for jobs. That's when we look at unemployment, that's what we're looking at.
Is it over a certain period of time?
Yeah,
Does
so-
it measure just for 6 months and then after that?
So they report weekly, the unemployment reports weekly, and that is how many people are searching for jobs this last 4 weeks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Director Gilmore.
Can we get this slide deck?
Of course.
Thank you, I appreciate
You
it.
bet.
Director Kim.
Thank you, Mayor. Dr. Ross, thank you for your.
Hang on just one second. Mister, not doctor.
Oh, Mr.
I
Ross,
mean,
okay.
I'll take it, I'll take it. If
Well, I thought Director Settle said doctor, so I went there.
It was Director Settle, so it's all
Okay.
right. It's all right.
Okay, I look for him as a senior leader.
There
on
you
this
go,
board.
you're into it.
I upgraded leadership.
doctor, so.
Yeah, he's only been around a couple decades, I don't know what his thing is. Mr. Ross, thank you for the great presentation tonight and the data. One question related to Director Settle's question, I wonder, is it easier to track out of the 105,000 jobs for the Metro, how many of those jobs are in Fort Smith? Would that be a way to start deducting into how much of the percentage of the pie we have?
I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out.
And I'm just curious on that, because I would love to see if there is a way there to see the data of that. And I really like the talent retention strategies that the university and the lady represented here today. Is there any metric that, or maybe something you think we could find out from the school district about how many of those graduates from high school are going to college, how many of them are joining the workforce, and how many of them are joining our workforce versus leaving to go to one of the other metro areas or another part of the United States? I'm wondering how many of our high school graduates that are just joining the marketplace, are we succeeding in keeping them, or are they going to these other metros?
Yeah, that's a very fair question. Our director of Western Arkansas Technical Center and director of Early College Program could answer that. That is something that we do on a regular basis. Is we're training high school students at the Western Arkansas Technical Center out of Peak. So our goal is to get those people trained, and they're either ready to go into the workforce or they're ready to go to college. And so we would have those numbers for sure.
Another question I thought of is, that maybe we could work on is, what is the largest hiring barrier that employers are reporting? You know, is it skilled labor? Is it the housing? Is it childcare? Is it transportation? I wonder if that would even help us rank those of which ones they're hearing the most.
Yeah. It's going to be all of those, but we can pull a list of exactly what that is, for sure.
And then how many, Kurt, this is my last question, you may be able to answer this one because of the University of Arkansas connection. How many of our graduates from college are staying in our area?
So I don't know the number exactly, but the majority of them are staying here. That's the great thing about having the University of Arkansas Fort Smith right here in our community, is we are very much connected to the local community, and the majority of our students stay here. That's our goal, is to help them get a degree and then stay here in our community and really involve and get connected here.
One thing I'm hopeful of, and just I'll share my comment, I'll be done up. I'm hopeful of in the future, because you can look at your strengths and your weaknesses and things, but I think sometimes when you have a strength, play your strength. And since we have such a strong position in manufacturing, I would love to see in the future, defense manufacturing brought to Fort Smith, Arkansas. I think it belongs here, especially as we support and stand in support of the FMS project. We have, not only just that base at the Air Force Base, the base at Chaffee. We're a military town. We're friendly. especially as we talk about the international connections that we'll have. I would love to see growth in defense manufacturing here. It would be a great paying jobs.
So the university just released a new advanced manufacturing and engineering degree. So this is our first 4-year engineering degree here at the university. We've had mechanical and electrical, which is a 2+2 with the University of Arkansas. But we released the advanced manufacturing and engineering degree at a request of our manufacturers. This is what they wanted. They told us specifically what they wanted, and this is the only one here in Arkansas. And so I think you're gonna see a lot of students participate in the advanced manufacturing and engineering degree to do exactly what you're talking about, bring in some high-skilled labor.
And I'd love to see 1,000 affordable housing built, but I think at the same time, we're gonna have to solve the water. You know, we can't, water pressure will be an address as we increase housing, but, we've seen a lot of houses built, and a lot of the houses that I've seen built on the south side of town are pretty high in their value. And I think we're gonna have to continue to answer that as well. And I feel like it's some things that I've noticed, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Director Rigo.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to say, Mr. Ross, thank you. Thank you to Sasha and folks from Wapatiti for the work that both your organizations do, multifaceted across the workforce and development space, and for the information you've shared with us and share with everybody on a quarterly basis. And I think, we all sense that there's work to do, and that improvements can be made, and should be made, and we should always be focused on improving. But when you have these junction points to check in, I think it's worth saying thank you and reflecting to all the people that have led to the positive things that were reported in the report. The record number of jobs in the last 20 years, wages up 30%. When you look at in 4 sectors to prior to the pandemic to now, 2,000 more jobs in manufacturing, 600 more jobs in construction, 2,500 more jobs in education and health services, and 1,000 jobs more in the leisure and hospitality industry. That's over 6,000 new jobs relative to even before the pandemic. So for everyone who has played a part in employing a person in Fort Smith, helping somebody find a job, training somebody for a job, up-training somebody for a job, thank you, thank you, thank you, because each of those 6,100 new jobs represents a new opportunity and probably a positive development in that person's life. So thank you to everyone who played a part in that.
Thank you, Director Rigo. Director Settle and Director Neil Martin.
I got one other question, a slide that just came up. You said healthcare is almost right behind manufacturing jobs, is that correct?
No, I don't think so. Let me back up real quick.
It's a record number.
But it's a record high, for sure.
Record high.
Yes.
I thought it was like 15,000?
So 17, yeah, real close,
17%, yeah,
real close.
to manufacturing. So that shows that healthcare is going to start, if that trends up, it's going to overtake probably manufacturing in the next 15 years or so. It's manufacturing get more technical, more automated, robots, things like that. So that's interesting trend.
I would agree with that.
One other question, it's also down to Ashley. What can we do to get the message out that workforce services out there, so the public knows that they can get retrained in those areas? We're a government board, but what can the public do? What can we do to get the message out to those people that need that extra training?
So I think it's really just understanding what we do, and when you're out and you hear, I know a lot of like the dislocated worker program, they think it has to be a large company closure or a large amount of jobs. It could be if the laundromat, if a small business is closing, we want to go in and get those into our dislocated workers program. So I think it's knowing what we do and being out, and if you hear, send them our way.
Director Neil Martin.
Mr. Ross, 2 questions. Does this take into account remote workers that aren't working for a company here in Fort Smith?
So jobs are based on location. So people are based on, jobs are based on where the job is actually happening. So for a remote worker, if the job is happening here in Fort Smith, and let's say it's a University of Arkansas Fort Smith employee and they're working remotely, then we would count that. If they're working for the University of Oklahoma and living here, we would not count that. That would be a University of Oklahoma job.
Okay.
That's correct.
The next thing I would say is I would like to have this same presentation every year. I think it would be important for us to see this and see if we can track growth. I mean, if we're not measuring it, we can't affect it. So I want to make sure that that we see this. So I'd encourage that, Mr. Bingham.
I have a question in that vein. Is this level prepared or easily preparable every quarter as you all do the Compass report work?
We provide the Compass report on a quarterly data. It provides most of this information. Is it easily preparable? No, not really, but it's available. Yes, it's available.
Thank you.
This is all public data, I should say, too.
I would agree with at least the
Yes, I agree.
presentation. I just wondered if perhaps even multiple times a year.
Hey, if we could get it weekly, I'd have Mr. Ross here every week.
Director Cassanders.
Do you track retail at all? Because I know typically when we look at sales tax, collections, that's the biggest driver is retail.
In the Compass report, we look at sales tax data regularly every quarter. I didn't include it in this report. We're really focused on employment and job growth, but we can do that, yes.
No, I'm asking, do you track jobs within the retail sector?
Oh, yes. They're located under trade, transportation, and utilities.
Oh.
So when we go to, well, I don't have a slide for trade, transportation, and utilities because it's kind of, it's a job that is real important for the community. You'll find a lot of people that are plugged into that. The biggest concern is the wages are not as strong as we would like in trade, transportation, and utilities. Not like it is in healthcare or IT or manufacturing.
Right, I know there's been some softening in the transportation industry lately. Thank you.
Any more questions for Mr. Ross? Okay, thank you very much, Kenny.
Thank you.
This time we'll go to item number 3.
Item 3 is a discussion requested by the board to revisit the topic of an ordinance prohibiting camping on public properties, similar to an ordinance in Grants Pass, Oregon that survived the judicial scrutiny of the U.S. Supreme Court in 2024. We last considered an item on this topic in December 2024, when after study session discussions, the board was presented an ordinance that was similar to Grants Pass, but with some minor modifications that would be specific to Fort Smith. Ultimately, that version of the ordinance was defeated by board action. Since that time, there has been some community discussion and some separate staff discussion about revisiting a version of an ordinance that would be similar to the Grants Pass ordinance, would be as similar to the Grants Pass ordinance as possible. The draft of that ordinance compiled by the city attorney in late 2024 was included in the agenda packet for tonight's meeting for discussion purposes. That draft in particular does still need some additional refinement. Chief Baker is here this evening, Sean Gard is here this evening, our city attorney Colby Rowe is here this evening. All have had input in this process in the past, and we've had a bit of information on time this discussion to the board.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Neil Martin, you recognize.
Yeah, I guess I could start because I talked about this, and you know we disagreed on this particular ordinance back a couple years ago, but really it came home again when we heard Main Street Fort Smith and the survey that they put out. Now, in that survey, one of the main concerns or complaints of people was homelessness and safety in the downtown area. And I feel like we as a board have got, and this kind of speaks into what Mr. Ross and what Ashley were talking about just a little bit ago. But I feel like we have got to do something, or assist in doing something to try to make our downtown thrive, make our downtown grow. You know, I hear those exact same things about people's concerns about coming downtown. And what I talked when we were talking about Main Street Fort Smith in that survey, we had, you know, a small percentage of users or a small percentage of our citizens took that survey. There was a really significant number of citizens that didn't take the survey, and I'm very interested in them. But I think our downtown has a reputation of homelessness. We've gotten emails, we've gotten communication on it, and then also folks don't feel safe coming down. So I think we see that anecdotally, and so I think it's up to us to be able to do what we can do on our side. Maybe it's not this ordinance, and maybe it's not in this ordinance, but I think we need to strategize as a board about what we can do to help downtown grow, help downtown thrive, and make it a place where people want to be and are looking to go to for fun, entertainment, all those different things. So that's my opening comment on this.
Director Christine DeSantis.
Well, I think it's important when we're talking about this, that, you know, we know it's not illegal to be homeless, and I think sometimes what gets conflated or used interchangeably is homelessness with vagrancy. And so and this isn't just a problem unique to downtown, it's all over town now. But when I hear from business owners, it's people acting unlawfully. And so I think it's important as we talk about this to make that distinction. One of the issues that, you know, as I've looked into this, that we see is there's a mental health crisis, and we don't have adequate resources here. I believe there are some resources identified at the state level that we could be trying to work on with them to see if we can bring our facilities or get a new facility for mental health so that people have somewhere to go to seek treatment. But I do think it's important as we have the discussion that we're not lumping, you know, everyone who's homeless in. We're really, and I think that's what you need. You're really focused on people acting unlawfully.
Yeah, it's also being able to connect them with the services that we offer today. So I think that's part of it. A lot of people, I think we had a lot of people make it appear as though we were criminalizing homelessness.
Right.
And that wasn't my intent at all. It was more of how can we get them to the services that are available to them, rather than, you know, being unlawful in certain areas in public, those sorts of things.
Director Rigo.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I just wanted to point out something that I think I said even a couple of years ago, and I'm referencing the memo, where it says it's generally agreed by staff that such an ordinance would be another tool available to the police department and code enforcement officials as they respond to citizen concerns about homeless individuals sleeping or camping on public sidewalks. I asked this question a couple of years ago. Is it not already against the law to sleep or camp on a public sidewalk in such a way that obstructs people's ability to use the sidewalk? Is there state laws on the books about this? Current policies of the city of Fort Smith that cover this? What's the current legal picture, Colby?
So there are, you know, when we talk about statutes and tools that's already available to address some of these issues. You know, there's a statute that concerns disorderly conduct. This is an Arkansas statute. I'm not talking about city of Fort Smith laws. But it, you know, there's prescribes activity where an individual engages in such that they can be guilty of the offense of disorderly conduct if they obstruct vehicular or pedestrian traffic. So, I mean, your question is posed, presumably, I mean, if the right circumstances, then that individual, if they're blocking traffic, even pedestrian traffic, obstructing pedestrian traffic on a sidewalk, then that can be, that could fall under disorderly. Another statute dealing with loitering, it identifies circumstances that create a traffic hazard or impediment, and if a person does that, you know, creates an impediment to traffic impediment, then they can be found guilty of loitering. And then finally, there's another statute that deals with obstructing a highway or even, again, vehicular or pedestrian thoroughfare. And if that's done, then that individual could be guilty of that statute. So, you know, depending on the facts, there are on books, Arkansas state law, some statutes that address these things, vehicular, you know, impeding vehicular traffic or pedestrian traffic that may fit your hypothetical.
Okay. You know, I just trend more towards the notion, and I've said this over the years about a variety of topics, that I'm not a fan of just putting additional pieces of paper in the rule book just to say we quote unquote did something when there are already things in the rule book that could theoretically, or not even theoretically, could be utilized to enforce against criminal and unlawful activity. I think very much that the cause and condition of being homeless, whether it's, you know, temporary or medium term or short term or long term, you know, it is not in and of itself a crime. I don't support things that dehumanize people, your language and conversations and approaches around it. And I think that it's very, very, this is a fascinating topic because it's so relativistic. If one person has a interaction or an experience downtown that they don't like, does that carry more weight than 5 people chiming in saying, well, I had a great time downtown and I've never had an issue downtown and I've never felt unsafe downtown? Everyone's experience about their personal safety is, by its very nature, very important to them and almost crowds out anything else. So it becomes very, very hard when actual data about crime or lack thereof, actual police reports or lack thereof, actual efforts from business owners or lack thereof to report alleged crimes, when that comes into contact with anecdotally driven, experientially driven, relativistic experiences that people have, it becomes very, very hard to adjudicate, to prosecute, to manage as a city. And I don't know that there's a one-size silver bullet that fixes this challenge, which is why I think it's a challenge that lingers across many communities and in many different areas of many communities. And so I think whatever we decide to do, I hope it lands on the side of being humane and recognizing that these people are human beings created in God's image, and that there are that is a very, very important consideration. And by saying that, I don't mean to imply that anybody else thinks otherwise, but that's what I try to keep in the forefront of my mind when I think and consider policy responses from the government to this issue. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Casares.
Well, when we talk about what's humane, I don't believe it's humane to enable someone to live on a sidewalk. We've got to connect these people to services, because there are people, we saw this in New York with the snowstorm, the people that weren't able to advocate for themselves and they left them and they froze to death, and we don't want to see that here. I think if we already have these laws on the books and we're not utilizing them, and Chief, this will be a question for you, is it because we don't have services that are adequate for the issues that we're facing?
We are utilizing the existing laws. I mean, the jail stays full with homeless folks. A lot of the problem folks that I guess attract the most attention, they don't want to utilize the services. And forcing them to do that is not only impossible, absent criminal charges, and even that doesn't seem to be successful.
Yeah, because when I talk to business owners, what they say is, their property gets defaced or things like that, and I think that's what we want to put a stop to. Growing up, being downtown, we had the one little old lady that pushed the shopping cart, and that was it. And now it's everywhere you go, all over town, and it's people. Clearly, I see it at the library a lot with mental health issues. I don't know that there are any capacity to refuse treatment. But I think what the problem is that the treatment is so limited. You can maybe put them in jail or get them somewhere for a few days and then they're right back out. So I think what we need to look at are longer term.
It depends on how fast they get through the next 2 issues.
Would anybody else agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Excuse me, I think.
No, I'm done.
Okay, I think Director Kemp was next in the queue, and we'll come to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would concur with Director Christina Casares' comments. I think until you get the state legislature or the federal government giving us some funding or recruitment of an expansion of long-term mental health housing, coming back to congregate care for those that are beyond their mental capacity of making choices for themselves, you're not gonna probably solve this problem. My question, I guess, just to even come back to it, I guess, Chief Baker, more pointedly, what would this ordinance do that we can't do now?
Honestly, I don't know, I don't see that it's going to give us any more options. I mean, Kobe and I have gone back and forth with this, and I mean, this is essentially site and release. There's a little bit more specific language about sleeping on sidewalks. I think that some of the issues that our officers have encountered, where people have made complaints or where we see congregations of people in particular areas. I know 5th and A is a hot spot. 6th and 6th Street around the next set day room. And so often the folks that are loitering, sleeping on the sidewalk, they're doing it in a way that doesn't obstruct the sidewalk. I think this ordinance might go a little bit beyond that, in that if a person is just simply sleeping on the sidewalk, then they would be in violation of the ordinance. But the enforcement mechanism is not going to alleviate the problem. The officer would issue a citation, and I guess theoretically, if the person then didn't vacate the area, we could potentially be looking at another law being broken in criminal trespass, but even that's going to get dicey on public sidewalks. So, I mean, to answer your question succinctly, I don't think that it's going to add that much to what we already have. But I don't want that to be construed as I'm opposed to the ordinance.
No, I appreciate your comments and your sympathetic to it. Is there ample marketing of the no loitering signs? I know that I've seen a lot more of those go up. Is that sort of, has that plateaued? I mean, are people still requesting no loitering signs, or have we circulated pretty much the masses of that?
I believe we still get requests occasionally for it. It's probably tapered off a bit from the beginning, but we do enforce them.
I will say to that point, it ebbs and flows. I mean, I think here recently we've had an uptick in people requesting them, and then it'll level off for a while, and then new folks will find out about the program and come in and get those signs.
Then I think we have to ask ourselves, you know, shelter capacity. You know, I know the Hope campus opens up, so no one's gonna freeze, because they even are allotted and allowed to be they allow people to sit in the hallways and stuff, so that you're not be out when there's freezing temperatures. But you know, do we even currently have sufficient shelter beds if enforcement like this begins? And I would, you know, if we're gonna dialogue further into it, and it becomes an item to a regular meeting, I would like to see, you know, how do we make this progressive for progress for the individual to services versus punitive actions? You know, as a person who has many friends in the unhoused community in Fort Smith, just from by nature of what I do for my day job, you know, they have lots of fines on their record, and they have sometimes even warrants, and as soon as they get a public intox charge or a disorderly conduct, then the judicial system obviously has a flag, and they have a rap sheet of things that they've got to deal with. But if you're just increasing citations, you're not really addressing the issue. And I think the thing that, and I don't advocate for this today, because I, you know, want us to stay budgetly operational, but from a city budgeting standpoint, we have high expectations for this, but we have zero funding for it. I mean, we're giving pass-through dollars for certain causes, but the city spends $0 supporting any agency or whoever to address homelessness. So I think at some point, we have to have realistic expectations because of our unrealistic funding that we give to the cause. So, I mean, when we talk about animals and cruelty and bad ownership and all of that nature, but it has significant funding. So, you know, I don't have answers for this either, other than if we did a study session about gathering agencies to tell us the benchmarks of that. And I know that Administrator Demon, we sit through a community session with agencies all the time, and I mean, I wonder what feedback you're getting in that meeting from them. You know, what would they, how could we lower it? The one critique I would offer up to what I've seen and heard is, I know that people, we talk about the point in time count, and they're talking about it going up. How do we get that point in time count down? How do we trend this down? And I don't, you know, like to see the point in time count swelling when there's a coalition of agencies. If we're coalitioning agencies together, we should be thinking about how can we bring that data down. And I don't know if we just got more accurate, and so it was unfair for what we used to have. The point in time count has definitely gone up. And why did it go up? And listening to those that have their hand to the plow might be a next step for us.
Neil Martin. Mr. Guard, since we had our discussion a while back, and the measure was defeated, have you had any observations in terms of what you see in your area of expertise versus the ordinance, and maybe things changing, or ways that we can make changes to an ordinance?
Well, just to kind of add to what Chief Baker was saying, one thing that we have seen across, it seems like we'll go for a lull for a little bit, then we'll have an uptick in homeless that are showing up. We are dealing with encampments across the entire city right now. Some of them are very creative, they're actually going underground now. But I do want to add that the ordinance that was proposed and checked in section 16-4 under our nuisance abatement ordinances, we do have a provision in there that prohibits camping, items and camping gear being utilized and stored outside unless you're in an approved campground. So with the help of the Fort Smith Police Department, we work closely together with them right now. When the encampment's identified, we're contacting the property owner, we're letting them know what's going on in the property, and they're getting cleaned up and they're removing the coverage. We have seen quite a few sleeping on the sidewalk and beginning to camp on the sidewalks. But once we're notified immediately by the PD, or we notify them, we work in conjunction with them. We'll go out there, we'll make contact, we'll show them, look, you can't have these items stored out underneath this ordinance right here. And usually within 24 to 48 hours, that stuff is removed. So we're actively working on it, and with what's being proposed within this ordinance, we have stuff on the books, even within code enforcement, to be able to address these items that are being stored outside. So with the help of what the police department's doing, and what we're doing in neighborhood services, I mean, I'm just going to put it bluntly, it's a constant battle, but we're staying on top of it, and once we're made aware of the situation, we address it immediately and it gets taken care of.
Okay. Well, you know, this seems to be a problem that we've dealt with for a while, or maybe haven't dealt with for a while, or we're dealing with. You know, I do remember Chief Baker saying that downtown area is the most heavily policed area in the city. I think that's true. You know, but I still continue to hear. We got an email last year from one of the administration at Northside High School, just out of the blue, about the issue and the problem. I had a number of people say, you know, you cross over the bridge and you see Casey's, and it's just a haven for loitering and those types of things, and it's just not a good look for the city. And you know, we've had a number of instances, just whether it's via social media or whatever, that I think make people nervous and don't want to come to the downtown area. And I feel fine downtown. I feel fine, but it doesn't mean my wife feels fine. Doesn't mean my kids feel fine. And I think until we have a plan of attack, or change how we do it. And I don't know what that is, and I think that's part of what we're struggling with, is we don't know what else we could add to this. I think we're still gonna see underperformance of our downtown area. We're gonna see businesses leave downtown area. I know we saw a lot that came in last year, according to Amanda Hager. But I think we're just gonna continue to see, we're not gonna see downtown live up to the potential that I think it could.
I agree with you.
And so, I think that's what we have to deal with. And I don't know what else to say.
Rico?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I just want to ask a series of questions or illustrate a hypothetical so we all hear it at the same time, and we have the wisdom and the insight from the chief and Colby if necessary. So if I was a business owner downtown right now, and I felt like somebody was either loitering on my private property, business owner, or somebody was defacing my property in some way, or somebody was being rude, either verbally or physically accosting customers in some form or fashion, and I called the police about this, you all would respond, of course. There would be, walk us through what would happen, because I think it goes into your point that you made earlier about then you start a legal process with an individual who does not necessarily engage regularly or how they should with the legal process. And then there may be, given the gravity of what they do, there may be some time spent in jail, but it all just kind of loops around and around and around. And there may be a situation where you create a deterrent for that person, for that individual business, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to crop back up into that region. So I believe it's very challenging to police your way out of a challenge of certain people making other certain people feel uncomfortable, or even people breaking the laws that currently exist around businesses. And I mean, just what does that actually look like if a business owner calls and says, hey, there's a person who is breaking the law, I think, at my business?
So we address behavior, and illegal behavior specifically. And so when a business owner or anybody downtown calls and makes a complaint of illegal behavior, maybe it isn't even illegal behavior, we're still going to respond and make that determination. But an officer will show up. We try to interact with folks in a way to solve the problem in the best way. If that's directing them to other services, our officers are trained to do that. If they're having a mental health issue or a crisis, we have officers that are trained to deal with that. But if all else fails, then if there's been a violation of the law, then they will generally be arrested, taken to the county jail. I don't know if it's currently the situation, but one of the challenges that we've faced for a long time and continue to face is overcrowding at the jail. And so we've already incurred a great amount of time taking the officer off the street, money to take this individual to jail. And because of crowding issues at the jail, they're typically given a court date and a signature bond and released, often right back out on the street before the officer even gets their paperwork done. At some point, they have a court date set, roll the dice of whether they show up to court or not. Generally they don't, and so then a warrant's issued for their arrest, and when we run across them again, they get picked up again. And as you adequately described, it's often a vicious cycle.
May I interject for a moment?
Sure.
If a person has failed to show for a court date, the warrant has been issued for that person's arrest, you come across them again, they are arrested. Does the fact that they did not show for a court date or court dates, does that usually put them higher onto the priority list, if you will, to actually be incarcerated? or do the same overcrowding challenges remain?
Yeah, there's typically multiple FTAs before they actually are given any jail time. And, you know, even, and I don't fault the judicial system, prosecutor, judges. I mean, often jail is the only way to affect any kind of change, but that comes at a cost as well. I mean, the daily jail rate has continued to go up. I think we're over $80 an inmate per day in jail fees now. So, I mean, that impacts bottom lines, it impacts budgets. And something else that you mentioned, which I think is exacerbating our problem, is we want to affect change in behavior by whatever actions that we're taking. And so if we arrest John Smith for any charge, and then John Smith leaves Fort Smith, or, you know, his behavior changes and we don't deal with him anymore, we have a constant, steady supply of new homeless people in Fort Smith. And so that behavioral change that we're trying to affect, it doesn't ever really get spread out to the entire homeless population, because that population is continually changing. So, I mean, you know, we can be heavy-handed with folks, and then we got a whole new batch of folks that we basically got to train again. So I think that's contributing to a lot of these issues. But I mean, we always try to take the action that's going to produce the behavior change, the least invasive action to produce the desired change that we want to see. Now, I will say this, in the last several months, we have taken a zero tolerance approach to observed or reported violations downtown. I have gotten feedback that the landscape seems to have changed in the downtown, but I've also gotten feedback from Sean and others that, as expected, we start seeing problems in other areas of the city. And so we're just simply transferring the nuisance from one area of town to another with these tactics. And we've been doing it for years now.
Thank you, Chief.
Any Director Gilmore?
Well, I mean, to go back to what you said, Chief, new homeless or new arrivals every week.
Oh, I didn't say a time, but I would imagine that's probably pretty close to accurate.
And I know we've talked about it, and I think Sean has talked about it before. But how are they getting?
Well,
I mean, are they just falling into homelessness as economic conditions are occurring, and they just fall into homelessness?
no, sir. I mean, I'm sure we have those in Fort Smith that are true Fort Smith citizens that are homeless, but most of the folks that our officers are interacting with are from other places. I mean, we have, and I hate to keep going back to this. I'm not advocating for shutting the services down, but I mean, as long as we have services for homeless people, we're gonna have homeless folks in Fort Smith. It's the fact of the matter. And as I've said many times, if Fort Smith is gonna be a place to serve the homeless, then we have to have clear guidelines about where that's okay. And I mean, it's pretty clear that downtown is not the place, at least to the downtown folks.
Thank you, Chief. That's helpful. I mean, this is something that we have heard as well. And I don't know how we stop that pipeline coming to us, because it appears that there's a pipeline, whether that's through buses, other municipalities, whatever. We've got to shut it off, and I don't know how to do that.
I've advocated for sending a bill when we identify.
Yeah.
When we identify somebody bringing someone to Fort Smith, send them a bill. I mean, I don't think there's any way we could hold their feet to the fire, but again, as long as we have the services in Fort Smith, their response is gonna be just bringing them to where the services
Yeah,
are.
so do they, I hear they come via bus.
I've heard that rumored. I mean, I think the most recent confirmed, which I say confirmed, is based on interviews with some of our homeless folks, interactions with our officers, with a facility in Alma, bringing them here because they had been kicked out of whatever facility they were in Alma. We've had instances of law enforcement in Oklahoma bringing folks over here and dropping them out at Garrison Point or at the homeless shelter.
That's dirty. That's dirty. That is dirty.
It solves their problem, makes
Yeah,
our
sure
work.
does. Sure does.
Director Kent?
Thank you, Mayor. I do think that the other side of that, continuing that conversation has to be noted though. I mean, am I going to be homeless in Arcoma where I have little traffic to ask someone for help? You know, there's no store to stand outside of. I mean, by nature, metro areas have homelessness. Downtown businesses and metro areas still thrive and still have homeless people around. I think that we do need to kind of make sure we balance that conversation. I mean, I am frustrated when I hear about law enforcement of other towns bringing people to us. I mean, to be funny for just a second, I mean, you could just have a charter bus and bus them to Hot Springs where they have a city-funded homeless shelter. I mean, but I think the reality is metro areas are going to have a measure of homelessness. But just simple ideas, whether this is funded by the nonprofit sector for those that may be watching online, or if this was to be supported in some way through a grant or through city. You know, the more you increase street outreach, you know, most agencies in town, I think, do not do this. But street outreach is someone that's going around and talking about, hey, you know, before a cop comes, this is what you need to know. You can't be here doing this. Here's places you can go. Here, I can arrange you a ride. You know, they'll come by and they can pick you up and they can help you. The ESG grant match that the Hope Campus manages, just today, I've helped someone out of homelessness utilizing that resource, but it is a reimbursement process. And sometimes their funding, because it's reimbursement, is so low as an organization that they're not able to utilize the maximum ESG allotment that they can spend. So what you have is they can spend up to this amount of money, but they don't have this amount of money to initiate for helping someone housed and then get reimbursement for. So they need an ability to do that. One thing that I hope would be pioneered in the future is a community work-based mentor therapy group that allows people who have been down and out of their situations to have someone that will help them for a few days of the week find work, and then a few days go around and just pick up trash in the community. One of the areas that I saw in an urban area that was doing well in this was putting people and giving them a sense of dignity again to get back and getting back to work. And then, you know, we moved the Hope Pavilion from the park down here that was sort of out of pocket and was drawing people to that for public feeding. We moved that over to Hope Campus. You know, perhaps there's a way that we can start utilizing that greater by saying, hey, this is a zone you're allowed to be for loitering and for your services. You can't be here, which brings me, I guess, a question would be, from a planning perspective, can we do better by zoning where loitering activities can happen within the city? Is there any need to increase that? I mean,
I would say that zoning is a land use regulation, not a people behavior regulation.
yeah. I mean, those are funding opportunities that are there. I know that they talked about one year they had $300,000 that they could have put in our landlords' pockets, but they did not have the funding to do it. And that funding would be not just spent, it would come back. So it gets a reimbursement, right? So if you spend that out to its max, and then they turn in reimbursement, that could come right back to that fund and just continually be there. And we're not utilizing that. We're not utilizing the ESG grant funding that we've been allotted for our community, which would help our landlords, would help some of the unhoused population. As I know the guy that I'm helping, he'll have his deposit in 2 months' rent. I mean, that's a leg up. And he already has a job, he just got it. I mean, it's gonna take that sort of zero down approach, but obviously, we have some influx of people coming as well.
Rodrigo?
Well, you know, all I'll say pretty quickly is, you know, and I think we have to give ourselves a little bit of credit here for the community that we all contribute to and have painstakingly built over the years. You know, we have at the church I attend, First Presbyterian, we have a dinner the first Sunday of every month that really attracts a lot of, you know, homeless folks or folks who are really down on hard times. And you spend time sitting and talking to the folks at the table, and you hear from a lot of people who they were attracted here from other communities for opportunities to try and work and to try to improve themselves. And so wherever community they were at, you know, Tulsa or Oklahoma City or Springdale or wherever, Springfield, Missouri, they did a little panhandling, they worked what they could, you know, all this to get themselves a one-way ticket here. And then as we all know, you know, it's been mentioned many times tonight, I think it's important, you know, a lot of folks have mental health challenges, both housed and unhoused. And you come here, you save your money, you think you're gonna come and get a manufacturing job because you hear this is the biggest manufacturing job hub in Arkansas. That sounds like something you can do. I don't need a degree for that. I can use my hands. And then just like we all know, it's hard sometimes to get hired. You know, there's more interviews than you think. You walk in and the people all next to you have, you know, neckties on, or they ask you a question and it doesn't make any sense to you, and then you've spent your last money, you've come here, you thought you were going to start working with your hands, and then you did not pass that interview. Your likelihood to do other interviews is probably diminished because of the, I imagine, the shame or the guilt or the humiliation that you feel. And so then you are homeless in Fort Smith, Arkansas, which was not your intention. And so I, for one, am glad that we have people like Ms. Sharon and others at the Hope campus who work on the front lines every day trying to help people. And I'm glad that there are things like the Hope campus where when people encounter our fellow human beings that are in a tough situation, there's at least a place they can point to where they know they can go. I came out of church a month ago, and there was a gentleman on the sidewalk. He was in real bad shape. He said, I need some help. I don't know where to go. And I said, well, do you know about the Hope campus? And he said, well, no, I haven't heard of that. I don't know where that is exactly. And I said, well, hop in, I'll take you there. And I walked him in and got him in with the people at the front desk. And, I don't know ultimately what happened to him, but I know I didn't have to just turn away from him on the sidewalk and go, hey, sorry, buddy. So I'm glad that there are providers who work to try and help people.
Correct,
Jeff, do we still have our home reunification program for people like that?
That is worked through the nonprofit agencies when they have funding available for that, then they do rehome folks, but they do it specifically when they have someone on the other end to send them to.
Right, so if they came here for a job and then it didn't work out, they have a home they can go back to, we would assist with that.
Yes, if there is funding available, and like I said, they depend on private funding usually for those types of situations.
Chief, how big of a factor do illegal drugs play with this?
I think it's a large problem in the homeless population. I mean, we often find paraphernalia left behind and evidence of illegal drug use among the homeless. I mean, I would say it's prevalent.
So if we really poured resources into, drug task force, getting drugs off the street, do you think that would be beneficial?
Certainly that would be beneficial. I don't know that it would have much impact on the homeless situation. I mean, anytime we can get more illicit drugs off the street, better off we are. But, I mean, again, I think the root cause, and you talked about it initially, was untreated mental health. I mean, which came first, the chicken or the egg, the drug addiction, the substance abuse, or the mental illness?
Thank you, Crazy.
I would never venture a guess at that, but they are definitely linked together, and it's definitely a prevalent problem with our homeless population. Many of these folks have underlying mental health issues that are not treated or not treated properly, or they're self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, which exacerbates the problem.
Mm-hmm. I've been reading that there's been a lot of drug busts lately. Seems like y'all are really focusing on that. That's good. Where are we at with fentanyl deaths this year?
Fentanyl deaths are down, thankfully, thank God. I think we started to see a little bit of a rise at the end of 2024, and then it started coming down again. Unfortunately, meth is making a comeback, and we really never went away, but I mean, we saw, an increase in the opioid use and abuse in Fort Smith. We had some deaths. We had a lot of overdoses as a result of particularly fentanyl, illicit fentanyl. The fact that we had Narcan, deaths from that. But unfortunately, meth is now king again in Fort Smith, and I think it's true pretty much all southern states. So the deaths are down, to answer your question.
I'm proud of you, Crystal.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. If not, let's take a 10-minute recess and return at 7:55.
All right, we get a recess. We don't have slides and swings to play on though, like in grade school. Hi, everybody. I wonder if anybody's going to want to come talk to me. You never know. Hi, everyone. Welcome in. And you guys that know me know that I've worked very closely to try to help some people. Let me clear this camera a little bit. I think that looks a little better. You know that I work very closely to try to help people through homeless situations. It's very close to my heart. I've worked with people through our local Hope campus, and I've been able to keep people in their houses longer than I would have been able to without those services existing. And I know I'm not the only landlord that can sometimes be more gracious. Ultimately, though, the homelessness is usually not economic. It is, generally speaking, something related to mental health. And they touched it briefly, but then they get off the subject. And you can hear the chief of police talking about arresting people for things. And then that problem just recurring. They just go out, they come back. They don't show up for court. Nothing happens. They don't show up for court, nothing happens. Our jail facility is literally not allowed to provide mental health care to somebody until they've been in jail for 8 months straight by our state law, which is ridiculous, because a lot of the people that are going in don't really even need to be in jail. They need to be receiving mental health care. Well, thank you, Infinity and Beyond. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Feels good to move around just a little bit. You know, sometimes in life it's real easy to think, why doesn't somebody just do something about that? Why doesn't somebody fix that, right? We just want, they should do this, and we picture that it's something that can just be done and then fixed. But in reality, no, I haven't spoke yet. I'll be speaking. We have to go through a couple more issues before I do. This is probably Well, there'll be one more issue that might go for a while, so it could be a little bit before I get to speak, but I'll be speaking. And I have a huge announcement that I can't wait to talk about. It'll be the first time really publicly announcing it, but it's not going to be that surprising to people that have followed me. So I have houses in Ward 1 and Ward 2, and I think I have a few houses in Ward 3 as well. So since I have real estate in several different places, I have city directors over all of those. But Ward 2 is where I live. Do you worry that the fangs will hurt how people view me politically? No. If I did, I wouldn't wear them, right? Yes, I'll be speaking tonight. I've already signed up. I've got a huge announcement that I'm going to make, so. It's always interesting to see who wants to come talk to me and who doesn't. Sometimes I have people that really want to, and then sometimes I have people that don't. It's always strange, right? Well, hello, Sarah. Yeah, my wife is amazing, isn't she? Yeah, I'm going to be making the announcement that is the key to my entire campaign. The thing that I'm most focused on. I've finished a lot of things related to that, and I'm going to be able to announce it today and kind of talk about where we're going with it and why we're doing it and all of those things. Hello, Donna. I know you would come talk to me if you were here, Donna. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying watching my live, Crazy, and thank you for booking the Vampire's Den. That really does help me a lot. Is she doing some sewing? She was talking about she was going to do some sewing while she was live. It is a long meeting, and we're only on item 3. We're going to be here a while, aren't we?
Hopefully it'll be through about another 45 minutes where I can talk.
Yeah. I plan to say a few things too. We'll see if we actually get to.
Yeah. You just study session on left.
It just depends on what they're studying. You knew that issue was going to be a while.
They're going to talk
and
about
Parrot Island.
That's
going to take
about another 30 minutes, probably right there.
Right. And an economic report, that takes a while to go over. That's just
I knew about the security lights in the alley.
That won't take long.
I think take longer than 10 or 15 minutes.
Hopefully not.
Yeah.
I love The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys is an amazing movie. So I'm talking to a few people here, and I'm live streaming so everybody can see, which is good because sometimes they have technical difficulties. You noticed I don't really have a southern accent. You're right, I put a lot of mental effort into hiding my southern accent. I didn't think it sounded very professional when I was younger, and it became a mental exercise not to sound that way. If you catch me when I'm tired, or you catch me if I've had a little bit of maybe a whiskey or something, you might hear my southern accent come out a little bit more, but I am from here. Where did I get inspiration for my clothing style? I just wear things that I like. Sometimes it's good just to do the things that you like. I'm going to come by here for just a minute.
And I was going when I know.
Hey, man.
Good, sir.
Good, how are you?
Trying to stay awake.
Trying. It's a little bit hard.
Failed a few times.
I'm going to be making an announcement about my petition to change the government style today during this meeting. So I'm starting the petition officially tomorrow to gather signatures to change from administrative to mayoral. I thought it might be something you'd be interested in talking about. So
yeah,
I wanted to bring that up if you wanted to chit chat about it later.
Now you got me to stick around a little bit longer.
Now you don't get to go home. Awesome. All right. He's one of our local news reporters. Where did I get such a cool hat? I believe this came from the Zon. I'm not certain. I am absolutely not certain. Yeah, I'm from around here and I could talk more like it, but I usually try to hide it. I could say things like yins and ain't got none, all that stuff, but I generally speaking suppress that to the point that I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's just, she probably does miss me. I miss her, but I can't speak for a while, so I'm going to be here for a bit. Did I grow up with a lot of people that were here? That's very interesting you would say that, Rambler. He's also from Arkansas, so we're from the same area. When we start speaking, it's going to be, our natural Arkansas dialect. The part of Arkansas that I'm in kind of is a mixture of Midwestern and Southern, as well as a little bit of Texas. We're kind of, geographically, we have lots of people that relocate from those areas, so we pick up a lot of different slang and a lot of different wordings from all those different places. I don't know when they're going to get started again. It's certainly been a few minutes, isn't it? You're from Fort Smith. You're my neighbor. Oh, they're calling us back. No more time on the playground.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 4 this evening is a review of security lighting in alleyways requested by the board at an earlier meeting. The city pays for the operation of street lights on street rights of way and in residential areas. These lights are typically located at intersections and alleyway entrances. The pending project to rehabilitate selected alleyways and inviting secure spaces for pedestrians seems to have garnered some interest in further lighting the alleyways. Historically, security lighting in alleyways has been the responsibility of private property owners, and they make the arrangement with the electric utility provider to get the light installed, and then they pay the monthly fee. If the city undertook such a program of overall lighting of alleyways, that cost would be transferred to the city. Further, while increased lighting in alleys is seen by some as security measures, we also hear the opposing view that such lighting pollutes or intrudes upon the quiet enjoyment of backyard spaces. Director of Public Works, Matt Meeker, is here and will further report on this item and answer questions from the board.
Administrator Dean has pretty much covered everything there, and I'm basically here to answer any questions. Basically what we were looking at for on alleyway lighting, that if we added lighting to everything, to all the, what I'll say are drivable alleys or open alleyways, it would add about 2,000 lights to our system, and would add approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of $280,000, $340,000 a year to our electric bill for lighting. Okay, any questions?
Okay, thank you, Director Rego.
So that was, my question was in that thing, and I just wanted to make sure I was following along correctly, that it would be 60,000, would it be 60,000 more dollars than what we're already spending to add the 2,000 lights? Did I follow the?
No, it's anywhere from 280,000 to 340,000.
I see.
Yeah, we're spending a little over 1.4 million a year.
I see. Okay, thank you. And I appreciate, I don't really have any more questions. I appreciate this information. Because as Jeff mentioned, folks seeing some of the recent lighting projects have reached out just to inquire about, the feasibility of doing that on a larger basis and what that would cost and things like that. So having this information, my questions are answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sell.
Thank you. Matt, did you ever investigate what it would cost us to do the lights ourselves, without doing through OG&E or Arkansas Valley?
I mean, that's been looked at before, but it would be taking over the system, I think.
Yeah, I'm not really thinking about the system, I'm really thinking about.
That's such a good read, Sawbones. Let me know how you like it.
One-time cost of X.
Or Sawbones.
And then we paid a kilowatt per hour rate for the lights are on. So in area, we treat whatever the cost of lights are, some number, as a capital cost. And then we have whatever the kilowatt rate is, so we're not paying the $9 to $13 per month for the pole and stuff. We say, we can go buy that for, I don't know, some number, $2,000, they use the number. And it's a one-time cost, but we're gonna spend, because it's LED, we're gonna spend you know, $3 a year or $5 a year on that light. I'm just using an example. I don't know what the numbers are, please. I just wondered, instead of going that route, could you look at a different route where we buy the lights themselves, install them ourselves, and then we pay a monthly charge or a yearly charge to what you need? Because, you know, I remember for the longest time it was $970,000 for what we paid for the lights in the city. Now it's 1.4 million.
Well, that's not just something overnight, that's an increase.
I know it has increased, and so my thinking is over the next 10 years, it's gonna be over $2 million, and so I just wonder, are we, you know, state of Arkansas, the cities can be their own, electric company if they wanted to. I'm not trying to advocate that. But I think there's gotta be some way that we might look at putting lights up ourselves and tying to the grid and paying them the fee.
Well, I can say that is something that we've gone through at least twice, and if not 3 times, to look at that, and it was never something that came out, we never came out on the good end by taking over that, because we still have to essentially, under the regulations we're under, we have to allow OG&E to continue to essentially maintain the lights on the system and everything, and so it didn't, it really wasn't a cost advantage to us to do that.
Thank you.
Director Kemp.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Maker, for being here tonight to address these questions. Are there some lights that are broken? Have we done an assessment of, or the lights have gone out? Have we ever thought about just sending out a night group to just see if there's some poles that we know are out but already put up?
I mean, we do from time to time, but most of that comes from reports from citizens and everything, but the report has to come from us to OG&E, and so we generally get, it's pretty much daily, we'll get reports in from citizens about a street light being out, and we make that report to OG&E. But we do on occasion, I know, as a matter of fact, that was one of the things we did last summer, I hesitate to bring up the mosquito spraying again, but when we stopped mosquito spraying, we continued the seasonal home for just a little bit beyond, just to give him some time before his time was up there, give him a little bit of a warning before his time was up. We sent him out at night looking and recording lights, and that's not the first time we've done that. We've done that on occasion with various employees, send them out at night. Usually about once a year we'll end up doing that.
Yeah, because I just, one resident that I was talking to about this, one of the things that they ran into was their neighbor had tried to call on it, but then they called the wrong person, and then this person was like, no, you need to call, and they told them who to call, and then it was fixed. But I think if we were to go around and be proactive in finding out where there's a pole that, hey, that light's not working and that needs to be addressed, that might help as well. What about, is there any sort of crime heat map that we have to overlay over our streets and where our lights are, and maybe we could focus on those high heat areas?
I would have to defer to the chief on that.
I don't know if I think he might have slipped out. I would just ask the administration, maybe that's something we could look into as well. Focus concentration where we know we're getting calls.
I mean, I would say that we do have that, the crime data, we do have heat maps and such, it probably could be overlaid with something that OG&E might provide for us to indicate where we have dark spots, and we can see where those things overlap.
Just thinking, let light expose the darkness where it needs to be exposed, and then
we could take such a map and have our staff look and research areas, you know, the hotspots in those areas and what the lighting situation is.
yeah, you answered a little bit of this already, but I want to ask, just in case you want to clarify, how many calls do you get for lights?
It's fairly regular. I don't have a good estimate for you, but I mean, we get calls every day, so.
Yeah. What about a budget? I mean, if let's say and I don't know if there's a sentiment there among this board yet or not, but if we were saying, yes, go, let's put the lights where you think we should put those lights and take on this budgetary expense, how does this affect the budgetary structure of your budget for being balanced?
Well, the money has to come from somewhere, and of course, we generally run fairly healthy fund balance and everything, but I mean, if we keep doing stuff like this, it's going to be an annual expense. Not only an annual expense, as Director Settle pointed out, the cost is, all our utility bills are gonna continue to go up, you know, and so at some point, you know, we're continually adding new, you gotta consider too, our light count isn't fixed, we're continually adding new lights when we have new developments and everything too, so we get new lights every year. That are added to the bill, so.
Thank you for the
Do we really wanna take on that burden? I mean, it might cause us to have money troubles in the future. It gives me pause and concern to do that.
Well, I even wonder as well, no, I don't see, Joshua Robertson here. Mr. Robertson, I was wondering, would be like, is there any exploratory feature? We talked about solar offsetting city buildings, and then we have solar offsetting several people within the housing authority within one building that had 400 residents. Is there any thought of how a solar offset could help our street light even in the future for funding, as we're talking about? That's not gonna get any cheaper. And I wonder if there's some sort of deal that could be made with OG&E about that.
The only question I had on there on solar, because that came up, I remember some discussion about that on the alleyway rehabilitation project, and on ownership and who's going to end up actually having to take care of them, and who has the funding to take care of them, and for maintenance on those lights. Because those batteries that are required for those solar, the solar powered lights, I mean, those aren't going to last forever. Those are going to go out. And if you put in a bunch at once, you're probably going to have a bunch of batteries go out at once. Probably a huge expense.
Yeah, and I think there's some parts of the town that are sympathetic that don't want to have their area lit up more, and then there are areas that do want this lit up more. And I know that Chief Baker did come back, and maybe I'll re-ask the question here, just maybe so we can get any sort of consensus in this meeting. Chief, we were talking about how the police force maintains like crime heat maps over the city, and I know you've shown data maps to show where officers are having to respond and higher concentrated areas. And we were talking about, is there maybe a way to collaborate alongside the streets department to see, hey, this area tends to get more traffic for officers, and is there any increase of lighting that we should consider in priority areas and in a phaseable approach?
Sure, yes, you can actually access that information on our website real time, where we can create the heat maps or crime maps for specific areas of the city. And our officers are encouraged. I mean, crime control and reduction through environmental controls is a very real thing. So I mean, if we see someplace that is dark and we have a lot of calls to that area, we usually reach out to Matt or OG&E one to see what we can do about getting lighting in those areas.
I know I, for one, would love to see the streets department be able to work with OG&E with the map where these lights are, see about these areas that maybe have high concentration but also have darkness, and maybe have a report back so that we can kind of address those specific areas first and have maybe a more pointed calculated cost versus increasing to $340,000, which then can balloon up from there. I think there should be some lighting addressed, and I think we could start with that data. That would be helpful.
Yeah, sure.
Director Rigo.
I was just going to build on that briefly and say that, you know, if the math is correct, then even if you take the higher number, the $340,000 cost, assuming new poles for every light installed, if you're talking about city, the total number is 2,000 lights, you know, that's $170 or so per light. If we found, you know, the targeted areas, you might be able to do a implemented program, you know, phased in over a number of years, or a pilot area or something like that in the year ahead for a budget number that would be, you know, very workable, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Any comments, Jim? Okay, thank you, Matt. We will go to item number 5.
Item 5 tonight is a review of the bids received for construction of the Taylor Island Water Slide Project. This project was originally bid in October 2025, and the bids received
Thank you,
were well
Ken.
outside the project budget. Subsequently, the project scope was refined, the budget augmented, and a contract for construction of the concrete footings and pump house was awarded. At the board's direction, that award was repealed, and staff again sought competitive bids for the construction pump house scope of the work and separate bids for the aquatics components and plumbing scope of the work for this project. On March the 5th, the city received 3 bids for the construction pump house scope and 2 bids for the aquatics scope. The bid tabulation results were included in the board's packet for this evening's discussion, and staff recommends advancing resolutions to the March 17th regular meeting to accept the bids and award contracts to the recommended low bidders. The recommended low responsive bidder for the construction portion of the project is SSI Incorporated, with a total bid of $1,751,910. The recommended low responsive bidder for the aquatics portion of the project is Clarity Pools, with a total cost bid of $664,200. The total of both bids amounts to $2,416,100, which is within the dollars appropriated for this project. The previously approved and then rescinded contract addressed only the construction pump house scope and was approved at $1,739,934.12. So the recommended contract from this process is an increase in cost of $11,975.88. We did not yet have pricing for the aquatics portion of the work that we could compare to the current bids received on March 5th. With that introduction, I'll turn it to the board for additional discussion or questions.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? Director George DeSantis.
Jim, Clarity Pools,
Yes, sir.
their bid was the way you just stated, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Burton Pools also bid on it. What was their bid?
The bid was $682,500 plus the $32,500 payment performance bond for
So what was the difference?
November.
What was the difference between those two bids?
$715,000 versus $664,200.
So what's the difference between Burton and Clarity?
$50,000.
But you know, do you not think that Burton being a local company would?
We did apply, the city does use a 5% local bidder preference. We did apply that, and even after the application of that 5% bidder preference, then Clarity Pool still is the responsive low bidder.
Well, because what I'm afraid of, Clarity's gonna come back when they get started and say, hey, we need to change orders. Like everybody else does.
All contractors have been informed that this project is not, we have to do change orders unless we make some different changes.
I just think Burton being a local company and you know, I think they, so the bids are fine, there's no more changing bids, right?
Those are the low responsive bidders, yes, sir. So they were
So if Burton were to come back and say, hey, we could save some money here doing this with
That's what we tried last time, George.
Yeah.
And we waived competitive bidding and authorized projects, and then we found ourselves having to do it again. So that's why we're here now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Director DeSantis.
Just for clarity, are you now in favor of the water slides?
No. But I would rather see a local company get the bid than somebody from Little Rock. I mean,
I did have a question about the bond cost. If you look at SSI and Steeping Construction, their bond cost was in line with their project cost, but when you look at Royal Ridge, their bond cost was $87,000, when the other ones were $17,000 and $19,000. I didn't understand that discrepancy.
And I did not ask them to clarify that. They were not the responsible bidders.
Is that what the bond cost was when they did the first time?
As I understand it, that was lumped in together with their overall cost projections, and I did not see a specific
I didn't see that
amount
broken
attributed
out.
to the payment performance bond.
Well, I would say, no, they weren't the lowest, so that shows competitive bidding works. That's why we shouldn't be waiving competitive bidding. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Kim.
Yes, Mayor. One, I just want to say thank you to the local contractors. This is evidence of, that things were still above board. The price point that SSI came back with was $5,000 under the Royal Ridge public number, which is fine. That's part of what bidding does. But Royal Ridge was the one who approached staff and said there's a way to bring savings. And then these prices being so close together from Royal Ridge to Burton Pools and Spas is evidence that they were right. And though both of those companies are not low bidders, they won't be awarded, they were the ones that did work hard to bring these savings to our community. And I want to say thank you to them, because before this, the RFB was in a process that was not going to be affordable. The bid price on the bond cost, the $87,831.75, is actually already in their number, but by the time you factor that with SSI, it's still that SSI is the low bidder. So, I mean, to the point I made in public, if anyone can help us, let's do this. I mean, these companies came forward trying to help us, and yet this process, now it shows that they were right, and we have a process to move forward.
Well, when you factor in the bond cost, it's almost $100,000 more.
Point of order, I have the floor, so you can talk to the mayor about that one. But I would
Well,
say.
you're just putting out misinformation, that's not true.
No, this is me calling and asking, why was your bond bid so high? And I'm telling you what they've told me. But
I'm just telling you what's in the agenda packet.
Let's
correct.
You'll be next.
But to the point I would say is that we have this, thank you to them that brought this forward. When you see that the other two pool contractors, I mean, I know Director or Administrator Beeman has talked about we didn't receive other bids, but we did get a second bid. We went back in the process. When we talked about waiving competitive bidding, we forgot that all people who issued bids to build a pump house were able to reissue a bid, and they did. So this is really a third bid for the pump house. And so at that point, that's where we stand. I'd like to make a motion that we put this on the next regular meeting to be approved in accordance with the staff recommendations.
I'm gonna go to direction established before she was in the queue. You want?
No, I was just making the
Okay.
point that it's not within the same amount, that when you factor in the bond cost, it puts Royal Ridge at $1,844,000, nearly $100,000 over SSI.
And we do have a motion on the second.
Director Kim's motion.
Okay, all right, thank you. So that would go to item number 6.
Item 6 tonight is a discussion of the management of the water park for the 2026 season. A request for proposals was issued in December, and we received 5 responses. 2 of the responses were deemed by the review committee as suitable, having managed parks or facilities of similar size for municipal governments, including ARM and one other company. Being familiar with the ARM team, the review committee met with the other company to discuss the proposal and approach, and while they offered an affirmative transition plan, they also followed up with a recommendation that the changing operators for 2026 season could be disruptive to the park's success for 2026. Ultimately, the review committee determined that more time was needed for a proper transition if a change of management were to occur. Recommending a change would have other challenges as well, but the first and foremost consideration was the impact of the park's startup and operation for this season. With that in mind, County Judge Steve Hoots and I are recommending to the respective governing bodies of the city and county that we enter into a 1-year agreement to continue management from American Resort Management for the 2026 season. Further, we recommend that we reissue an RFP for management services no later than July, with a new agreement starting after the park's 2026 operating season. This direction would encourage ARM to stay fully engaged in the audit process, which they have been, as well as additional reporting elements and frequency of management review during the operating season. With that introduction, I'll stand for questions.
Director Savage, you recognize?
Jeff, when will the audit be concluded? I believe it's soon, correct?
Well, they will be on site to do most of the audit work during the month of April. We anticipate it will be the May or June delivery.
You know, this just feels like such a slap in the face to the people of Fort Smith. The public trust is at an all-time low, and then to continue with this company that led us down this path to these water slides, it's a slap in the face to the people we represent. I mean, you continued their agreement from December through now on a temporary agreement. If you need to do one more month to get the audit done, that's one thing, but to another year, I'm not in favor of that.
Director Neal.
I would like to see the bids that we received. I think that's important for us to look at. And I see this agreement with ARM. Did anything change in the proposed agreement?
Other than removing items that relate to multiple years.
Can we get a red line copy of changes? Is that possible?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah, I want to see that. And it looks like they did give some projections at the very end of our document. Looks like they're projecting a.
I attached the proposed budget for 2026.
Yeah, it looks like they're projecting a modest surplus this year, about $50,000, $46,000. I'm assuming that takes into account additional patrons due to the water slide.
Not necessarily, no. I mean, if the water slides are up and operational during the season, we'll consider that a bonus.
Will they be? Are they expected to be?
That construction, I can't imagine that they will be operational for much more than just a portion of the season.
1 second, I'll be right back, guys.
So we've got a mild net gain projected, so.
Right, but they did tell me that this budget projection was based on not having the slides operational for this year.
So if those were operational, we could see an increase. Okay.
Director Savage.
I mean, even without the results of the audit, we know they lost an $8,000 check. I mean, if I were working with somebody that was that negligent, I'd be done. I don't know why we're even entertaining this.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. Seeing none, this time we will go to item number.
Jeff, you need a motion to put on agenda. Motion to put on agenda.
Okay. We need a second. Second. Okay. Thank you. With that, we'll go to item number 7. Review of the preliminary agenda on March 17th. Should you look at that? And with that, we'll go to the citizens forum, Madam Clerk.
The first is Jenny Harrison. And each will have 5 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Jerry, and I want to talk about water bills. My wife's water bill we paid this month was $130.43. Normally our water bill runs $64.02, and it had 38 days on the billing cycle. I would like to know why it had that many days on the billing cycle. Normally it's 30 days.
Somebody answering?
Yeah, I'd like to know too.
Correct. Good.
Yeah, so in speaking with Joshua Robertson, I actually took your call, took your concerns to Joshua, and his response to me was the delay was due to weather. Some days in certain areas, they just didn't work, they didn't go out. I don't really want to see weather, because that's all I can really remember. It was weather related. But, you know, some of the trucks were able to go out, certain locations, and some were not. Some days, I don't know if anybody got, but he did say it was all weather related. And we did speak to the fact that, that even though this billing cycle was 38 days, your next billing cycle would be shorter, so you'd see the not even saving, but you would see that shorter amount of charge on your next one bill.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff, would you make sure that you or Maggie follows up with Jimmy and Linda just as a real personal touch with them on this. Jimmy and Linda are here each and every week, rain or shine, meeting with us, talking with us, learning about the community. Sorry that there was that it was different, that there was a disruption, and that there was something that was out of the normal habit with y'all, that it was frustrating. So if you guys could just please follow up with Jimmy and Linda, and thank you, Director, as well, for the work you've already done too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Shane McKinney.
All right. Hi, everybody. So, haven't spoke to you guys in a few days. It seems like a couple months, because I haven't had a whole lot to say. We've been working on a lot of things, but I wanted to make this announcement publicly before I started doing this. We have finally gotten back our petition from legal. So starting tomorrow, we're going to be petitioning to change the government of the city of Fort Smith from an administrative form of government to a mayoral form of government to put on the ballot in November. We've been putting a lot of effort into this to make sure we do it correct. I feel like I found a lot of supporters and a lot of people that are ready to make a change. I know that you guys are about to start an administrative search, and I feel like this is going to probably become a challenge for that. So my suggestion is this: it's possible for the board to decide to make a motion to vote on changing our government to a mayoral form of government instead of an administrative form of government, instead of waiting for this petition to come through. We only need 2,619 signatures to get a vote on this. I've gotten a petition with 29,000 signatures submitted in Crawford County before. It's very likely that we will succeed in doing just this. But while we're doing this, I'm going to be doing PRs. We're going to be doing public announcements frequently. It probably isn't going to help the administrator search during that time. I think the writing is on the wall that the citizens don't like the way our government has been deciding things for a very long time. And I think it's time that we separate the executive and legislative parts of our government and create two different entities with two different balances. I think the citizens are in favor of that, and I think you'll find it's something worth considering. I do think it'd be less painful if it came more quickly than we put an administrator in and then we immediately have this change and we possibly end up with a less than spectacular person because they're worried about job longevity, knowing what we're trying to change. So I'd like to create a discussion around that, at least bring it forward to all of you at once. I've talked to several of you independently, but I think this is an issue worth discussing. Thank you.
Next, we have Gary Pondersky.
We've been working on this for a long time. Go outside, chit chat.
Good evening. Just to go over tonight's agenda. On item number 1, I asked that the board represent here.
Thank you, guys. So, starting tomorrow, we are gathering petitions to fire the city administrator position, change the mayoral position to actually be the administrator the way most cities run in our nation, instead of having a dedicated administrator and a dedicated mayor where we can have the board chooses the administrator. This is ultimately what leads to corruption and what leads to questions being challenged. It gets to appoint the administrator, so the administrator answers to the board. So if the administrators are corrupt, or if the board members are corrupt and they appoint a corrupt administrator, there's no check or balance there whatsoever. Yes, the Fort Smith mayor is very much like the Queen of England and we have to change this. It's ridiculous. When we try to have somebody go represent our city, for example, let's just say we send our mayor to go try to attract a business to some kind of meeting. He goes out and he's competing with other mayors possibly at this. So he's talking against the mayor of Fayetteville, the mayor of Springdale, the mayor of Rogers. And he says, all right, I think we can attract this company. Let's make a deal. I'll see if I can get this sales tax grant approved for you, or let's see if we can get the water rates low enough for you to be interested. He has to come back and talk to the board and get board approval because he has no authority to act. Whereas in most cities, the mayor can just make that deal on the spot. So when he's competing against other cities, we're automatically at a disadvantage, which is not good either. I don't know our total registered voter count. If I had to, this has been a while since I've looked at the number. I think it's 30-something thousand, but it's only the people that voted in the last mayoral election that matters. The board is the people that are in that room, exactly. No, they don't want to say anything right now. The point of this is to put them on check that this is going public. It's one thing to talk about something on TikTok, and it's one thing to talk about something on social media and people to follow me. It's a whole nother thing to see it actually happen, to see the signatures start to go on the paper, to see the news stories about it. So I already talked to the news reporter. He's going to interview me and talk to me further about this. We're going to make sure that this becomes public, and as this becomes more public, it becomes seen by the people, again, that they're going to be searching and recruiting an administrator on. So this becomes very, very important. Be a good, caring host. Don't be overbearing and sure. I don't understand what you mean by that exactly. I may win, but I may not win. Failure is always an option. I feel like we have a really good chance at changing things here, but there are a lot of people that are running for mayor. Some of them I'm in total agreement with, and I could vote for myself. So a lot of times people think of you're running against someone, okay? You're running against another candidate. You're running against this person. You're running against this person. I don't see it that way. I'm running for issues. I'm running for certain things. And I want those issues to be helped. If I don't win and somebody else becomes the mayor, if I can move the bar towards doing a different thing, then we've succeeded. We've changed things. There's 5 currently, but I'm pretty certain we're going to have a 6. Right, so for example, in Crawford County, county next to ours, I did a 29,000 signature petition before. I referenced that while I was talking just a minute ago. We failed at that petition. We did not succeed at our goal. However, our goal was to change the mindset to some degree as well, and that did happen to the point that downtown Van Buren is now a hot spot. They have bars that are open and places that are serving alcohol. All those things changed as a result of our petition to try to get alcohol legalized from a liquor store perception. I am not on my way to Pennsylvania Avenue. I have no desires to go there other than to visit maybe, but definitely don't want that kind of power. People aren't going to take me seriously. You'd be surprised how many people take me seriously already. Six opponents. Well, those opponents have to stay in the entire time for it to represent a 16% chance of victory. There's a very strong possibility that as things progress on and there become clear leaders and followers, that some of those people will drop out. That will likely happen. Most likely we'll go to a runoff election. So a runoff election favors me greatly because the hardest thing to do in a runoff election is get the people to show up to vote. Everybody else that's running against me has to come up with a way to tell you to go out to vote for them. I can just turn on a camera, and right now there are 230 people on this social media. There's 300 people on this social media. I'll have thousands of people talking to me when I turn on a camera, and because of that, my get out to the vote will be much simpler than most of those people. Ben, you can't believe my vampire teeth. Your mother loves the vampire teeth. I wear them just for her, buddy. Yes, I'm running for mayor of Fort Smith. So knocking on doors. When I'm doing the petition, there will probably be a little bit of door knocking. I'm the political candidate that can make a your mom joke. How many others can? Actually, Ben, in your mom's case, it's not a joke, it's a mom fact. You're in Fort Smith this week for work. I hope I get to run into you. Well, that's fine, Ben. I hope you pick one of the good rivals. Some of them I'm really excited about. I think they're going to be great candidates. I do some close-up magic from time to time. If you join me tomorrow when I'm not in a city council meeting, you'll be more likely to get it. Or perhaps I could do some hypnosis or something like that. Fort Smith has been stale for a long time. If there's anything that I'm going to do, it's going to be making Fort Smith more interesting. This shirt is available on my TikTok showcase. You can actually buy this one on my TikTok showcase. Here, I'll pin it just to make it super easy for you to find. For the person asking about it. There you go. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are amazing, and it's your support that is creating this ability for me to try to make this change. Without you guys, I couldn't do this, so thank you so much. What about the mayor shirt? You can find that on the Vampire Mayor, followed by a dot and then com. Vampire Mayor dot. I ran into my first person wearing one in the wild yesterday at the mall. I'd love to see some martial arts content. Well, if anybody attacks me while I'm out here talking to you, you'll get to see some firsthand. How does that sound? The vest does match the Kerrygold butter, yes. It's important to match your vest to your butter. Yeah. Mayor's election is not until November. We have a ways to go. The mayor is a nonpartisan position, so we don't run as a part of a party no matter who the candidate is. And I'm running nonpartisan just as things would instruct. Are you 33rd degrees? No, I'm not 33rd degrees. I've done 35 years of martial arts, however. Hang on just a second. Thought somebody was struggling with the door, but I don't think so. A stonecutter like in The Simpsons? I am not a Freemason, no. Absolutely not. And I have no problem with Freemasons. I have some friends that are, but I wouldn't be a Mason. My son has a mental health issue that we talk about from time to time. And one of his fears is actually of the Masons when he gets into a paranoid phase. That's one of the secret society things that he has paranoia about. So I definitely wouldn't want to be a Mason, because I wouldn't do anything that would hinder my relationship with my son, for sure. You know, the whole secret society fear that exists. So. Thank you, Morgan. No, my election is not until November. The petition gathering that we're going to be doing is much more important. So, my wife is amazing, isn't she? I like several of my opponents. I shook a couple of their hands a while ago. I think they're great people. I'm not running against people. I'm running for ideas. There are several people that could win the mayor's race that I could support and I think could do good things. And I would hope they would feel similarly about me, although they may not want to talk that way, because most people want to make it us versus them and turn it into some kind of competition. But I'm hoping we can prevent that from being this way in this case. I hope we can be adults and be emotionally intelligent throughout this process, but we'll find out. We will definitely get enough signatures, and I think we'll get enough votes. A big part of what I'm doing is for that. No, Ciara, I'm not worried about more conservative people not voting for me because of appearance. It's going to be okay. Can I unpack the arguments you made tonight? Certainly. What do you want me to unpack specifically? I will be happy to share any information that I can, or also to be challenged. Something that a lot of people don't like to handle is failure. They don't like to handle being challenged and not having an answer. But if I get challenged and I don't have an answer, that means that I need to work on something in myself, or I need to adjust something. That's an opportunity for me to do better. Can you get a too long didn't read? So our city is ran as an administrative form of government, meaning we appoint an administrator from our board of directors that has the mayoral power most cities have. And then we elect a mayor. The mayor is a figurehead. The mayor is a person who has no voting power or anything significant. That's confusing for our citizens, because when they think things are going wrong, they'll blame the mayor for it, and the mayor has no power and no ability to do things. And it's really the administrator that's the problem. It's also confusing in that the board of directors picks their administrator. So if you have a corrupt board of directors, they can appoint an administrator that they can control on purpose. And then they have legislative power completely. Separating the election of mayor from the board of directors, making that an independent vote, puts the mayor as representing the people, not representing the board of directors. Right now, our executive person is representing the board of directors. It's the legislative function. We've combined that into one thing that eliminates the whole idea of checks and balances you learned in school. Yeah, and the mayor ends up taking a fall when the administrator makes bad decisions. Also, the mayor has no power, even though he's expected to represent our city at events and things where you would attract business and things to our city. So the mayor will go to an event with other mayors and compete for jobs and say, okay, I'd like you to come to our city of Fort Smith and open an office or open your business. And the mayor of Fayetteville, the mayor of Springdale, the mayor of all these other towns will be there too. Those mayors can make a deal on the spot and have the authority to do so. Our mayor has to say, we want you to come to Fort Smith, but I'm gonna have to go back and get board approval and get the administrator to contact you, and that creates a time restriction. So by the time the mayor gets through all of that bureaucracy, that person could very well have already picked with another place that could approve things. I don't want the burden, Womp. I honestly do not want the burden. There are sometimes we don't want burdens in life, but we need to take the burdens. You know, parenthood is an example of that. There are times where I really don't want to be a responsible parent. I just want to, just leave me alone, kids, but I am a parent, and I have to take that burden at times. There are times when adults have to do adult things, and I've saw too many problems in my city that needed to be addressed, and at some point you can complain about those things, or you can say, you know what, I can probably do something to change this, and then you can do it, or you can act towards doing it, and that's what I decided. Yeah, most municipalities are run on a mayoral form of government. So most mayors are mayors in most cities. Sherry, send me a message about that. They're charging $500 a year now for city limit skill trade workers to do jobs there, or out of city limits. Send me a message about that. I'd like to see a cited reference about it. That's ridiculous. That needs to stop. Yeah, that is absolutely absurd. One of the biggest things I want to change is our building and planning department. It has to change. It's ridiculous. There are probably some other municipalities, but it is by far the largest municipality ran on an administrative form of government. Our city is very large by Arkansas standards. You know, we have over 100,000 in the MSA, and to be running the city this size as an administrative when we're competing against all the ones that aren't is ridiculous. There's some other people in there speaking right now. I'm out in the lobby. I'm going to let you guys go for now. It's almost 9 o'clock, and I want to go talk to a news reporter and a couple people as this meeting wraps up, okay? Do I worry about my promiscuity? What promiscuity, Mercedes? I can tell you, you won't find me on a list. I've been with the same wife for 24 years. I've been with her for 25. We've been married for 24 years. The preachers that are in there that are already elected to the board of directors, I promise you, are way more promiscuous than I have been. We talk about things, and that's the deal, is a lot of people have a problem with actions, yet they read the books where those actions take place, don't they? Most of the people that have a problem with something are the people that are most interested in the something privately. I really don't think it's going to be a problem. I did show a house where I had a S*X dungeon. I literally built that dungeon for me and my wife, and then I sold it publicly, and it got 5 million views on Realtor.com. Top 5 houses sold in the United States. Yes, that's not a secret, and it's never been a secret, and I can promise you that the voters know about it already, and they were more than supportive. We had hundreds of people showing up at our open houses. Lots of the business community, lots of the bankers, lots of the politicians, they came to talk to me afterwards. Privately, of course, because they didn't want it to be public, but they were very much in favor of it. Again, a lot of people are publicly opposed to something, but privately it's a totally different thing. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go for now. I love you.